Okay, we are live once again, and you know what I love so much about this podcast right now? It's that the fact that we can put on the worst show possible, we can say absolutely nothing intelligent, we can stare at the camera for basically 2 hours, and no matter what, that will still be more entertaining than Mets baseball right now. But then you also just have those people that, like, they realize what they're watching is going to suck, and then they still are stupid enough to watch it, the whole goddamn thing, 162 times a year. Sorry, that's a little too close to home, isn't it? Mets Weekly Podcast number 51, Mets Guardians Series Recap. Let's play that jazzy intro music that we all love so much. All right, we got to do it every time. So as for your usual house cleaning, I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for this very podcast, which is now recorded live Sundays and Thursdays following every single series of games. And for those of you who are watching on playback and want to join the conversation, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know every single time we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, I want to let you guys know that we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns. And if you feel like you're being ignored, you're not. They are being starred throughout the show, and we will try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. And also make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which mainly features Frank's instant reactions after every single Mets game, titled The Mets Frankly Post Game. Now, you guys may notice that we do have two cam spots that are empty right now, and that belongs to this week's special guests. They have been on here multiple times before, so it's only right that our first guests they're the first guests of our live version of the podcast. So, co-hosts of Til Mets Do Us Part, John Saponaro, Matt, Ibby, Ibanez. I got to switch it because it just doesn't add up that way. Mm-hmm. Good to have you guys back on here. I think the last time we went live together, it was before maybe the off season, something like that. We talked about like an outlook for that, and now the outlook on the team is a little bit different. Let's just say that. John, I'll go to you, obviously, because there's two of you. So, well,
first of all, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
the outlook is not great right now, right? And we spent a lot of time on our show yesterday, and a couple of you guys were in the comments hanging out with us, which we appreciate. It's frustrating, and look, I know I go to war with a lot of people over how they want to build this team, and we can talk about that later. But the fact of the matter is something is not working. And I said as much yesterday on the show. Everybody who watches this team knows something isn't working. Something is amiss. Something needs to be shaken up. I don't know if it's the coaching staff. I don't know if it's dumping a player or two. It's probably all of the above because they have not been good since the end of 2022. And it just keeps happening. And I think I said yesterday on the show, the Mets have the opposite of the Midas touch. It seems like whatever. I believe in Stearns fully. I don't believe in curses. I think that stuff is nonsense. But man, everything we do, it's either not good enough to win to win it all, or it blows up in our faces. And it sucks. So I understand why people are frustrated.
Ibby, I'll go to you too. Welcome as well. How are you feeling about this team, just in general?
Again, just echoing some of the stuff that John just said. Thank you for having us back on. It's always a pleasure to chat it up with you guys. Hopefully, we can have more of these when we're talking about some better baseball. But, to continue John's point, I said it yesterday, last night, whatever. It's almost as if this team, like trying to pinpoint the problem, it's almost like we're trying to put together a puzzle of a bright blue sky where every piece is kind of the same. And you're just struggling to figure out what the problem really is. And it's frustrating because and I'm sure the rest of you as fans have always been able to sit there and say, this is what the issue is. If we remove this and we add this is what can help us. But I still question exactly what those pieces are. And I think John proper when he says, it's a little bit of everything, getting, people that are a little bit more in tune when it comes to the hitting side. I think Jeremy Hefner on the pitching side gets a pass for now, but some of the other things and really the lack of talent throughout the entire organization is what's really on display right now. And I know Pete Alonso will come up, and I'm sure everyone has their opinions on him and fans alike, and some people want to get rid of him. But like I said yesterday, he's the only guy in this lineup and in this organization that has any power. And in a league that's driven by power, if you remove that, you better have a good plan to tell me what you're going to do to change it and fix it, make us better, because you're going to be watching a lot of bad baseball. And outside of his home run, yesterday, he'd been a little bit of a drought. So you got a preview of what the team is like without any power, and it's not pretty. And in general, it's bad baseball right now. It's not fun. And 2 weeks ago, myself and John said that this team's playing a little bit better. It's better than we were watching last year, at least. And 2 weeks have gone by and it's completely switched, and it's just really, really shitty baseball and not fun to watch and just an overall chore. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Pete Alonso, we've got some stuff with him because it's only fair to line up the stars here with the recency of John on Twitter, and we got to obviously bring it up. I mean,
what did I do on
views
Twitter?
are important, folks. All right, we don't just do this for fun. All right, but Frank, I'll go to you on this one because you get to do your recaps after every single game.
God bless you.
I'm expect. I mean, he sends them to me because, I'm obviously the one who chops them up, and he sends them to me, and I feel like eventually I'm going to be seeing a full on 200 megabyte file that he sends to me, and I'm just going to be like, dude, I understand. I'm letting you go past the 1 minute now, but it's wow, oh my god, I feel like I'm going to get a full on 15-minute rant that I'm going to have to chop up. But it's warranted. Let's just say that, because it's not been good baseball. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and I think to kind of really touch on what both of you guys talked about already, to me, what I see is just what's wrong is they're just a bunch of losers. Let's call it like it is. They find so many different ways to lose baseball games. It's why you have a losing record. It's the not timely hitting one day. It's the bad base running by your veterans another day. It's the awful infield defense and letting everyone steal and walking the ballpark. It's 3 guys hit home runs, but they're all solo home runs. It's Adam Ottavino with a blow up. It's Diaz with a blow up. They find so many different ways to lose games, and it's hard to say this coach is the problem. This player is the problem. When you do so many things poorly and it's just something different every other day, and then this comes back to bite you again, you're just a losing team. And you know what? You just see that losing is contagious. And then to piggyback on the PowerPoint, Mets got 3 home runs last 2 games, lost both of them. Only team to do that. I mean, go figure. It's here you go. You finally have the power from guys you don't expect. Tomas Nido, Harrison Bader, Jeff McNeil on back-to-back days. Yet you still lost. That's the sign of just a losing team, because even when the things that you don't expect to go right actually go right, you still lose. Losers. It's as simple as that. They just have so many things wrong at the same time that getting it all to go well in the same day, as I've said, is just too much of an ask. It's asking too much because they can only do so much right in order to win a baseball game. It seems like a miracle when they win.
Andrew, I'll go to you. I mean, what are you seeing?
I mean, again, I hate using everyone's kind of said it, but I think the best meme is a Twitter meme where it's oh, if you have offense, the pitching will turn off, bullpen turn off, start rotation. And again, kind of Frank said, the losing mentality, and you guys talked about it with Tommy Pham. You got no dogs. I think we talked on the last time we were all together, we talked about the bullpen, and we were we had the most blandest white dude bullpen, and we needed some fire. This whole team is just bland, boring, just wants to roll over and die. No one has that. And yes, I'll use a hockey reference because I do. And the Rangers, there's no Matt Rempe out here, or Matthew Tkachuk, if you want to do the Panther side, of all right, you going to take some shit? Harrison Bader showed something. He gets plunked, and it's a homer. That's the only thing you've seen this team say, you know what? fuck you, hanging breaking ball, hits it out of the ballpark after hitting, just drilling me. For some reason, drilling him at everybody. He's the
and
one
he
that
stole the
drilled.
base too.
He stole the base.
He was on a warpath.
Warpath. Exactly. Like that was
Most
the
angry
only
baseball I've seen. I mean,
on this
like,
team, yeah,
in a long time.
And
yeah.
even if we have Francisco Alvarez, and yes, is he kind of the OG Anunoby? Because this team was at least watchable when Alvarez was on the team. He gets injured, and then it's just like a freaking. There are the dinosaurs, and here comes the asteroid, and it's just been unwatchable. I mean, it's like watching the Bad News Bears every night because like it's base running one night, it's I don't walk in the ballpark, or it's Lindor striking out in every situation, and just no clutch hitting. So again, it's just like watching a really shitty movie, and I love shitty movies. But, like, there's a breaking point of, like, I got to at least watch one cinema movie once in a while. I can't just keep watching the same old shit over and over again.
I think the record for the team, and if someone has it, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're like 10-26 since Alvarez went down. So that's telling enough.
They've played 36 games since jeez. It's felt like 500. Anyways.
I mean, think just really quick, I hesitant to use the word soft because I don't like calling professional athletes soft. So I've been very hesitant to do that. I did it on Twitter when, they added this guy, because I thought it was a funny penis pun. But other than that, I try not to use the word soft, but they are lacking something. I mean, I said it yesterday. You can't have two guys on your team known for their smiles. It's like the debate of like, who's Mr. Smile? Is it Lindor? Is it Nimmo? I don't know. Can somebody punch somebody in the face every once in a while when you're getting hit 406 times a season? Can we fight back? And, Alonso is not that guy. To me, Alonso reminds me of Eli Manning. He's a little bit more of like an aw shucks kind of guy. Like, I'm just going to go about my business and be a little goofy, be a little, like he doesn't have that killer. It's like no one on this team does. There's not a single person.
But John, I mean, hold on. Wait. But Eli Manning actually comes through when it matters.
Stop it. don't say that.
I'm trying to save it, but I had to do it.
I know.
Daniel is letting us know here. Oh, yeah, Raider fan. Hell yeah, man. God
bless you too, man.
Mets have lost 20 of their last 29 games.
That's not good.
Well, that's not good.
We got the
14 of the last 20 as well. 14 of the last 20.
That is just, I mean, it's just brutal. I mean, from what I'm seeing is obviously you can say the same thing pretty much every single week, after every single series, after every single game. The inconsistent offense, whether it is a laboring pitching staff, whether it is the bullpen that gets overworked or, missing some key guys. From the top of my head, at the end of the day, I don't trust this team to play 9 consecutive innings of good baseball. I just don't. And that's how I look at it right now. It's just, yeah, okay, they have a lead in the 3rd inning. Okay, matter. I don't care. Give me, it takes so much. I don't know how they've won 21 games at this point. It takes so much to squeeze out a win for this team. And that just becomes the only win of the series. I mean, they've been losing 2 out of 3 for a while, and it's just not been fun baseball. It really has just been, I'm not trying to say torture because there has been encouraging things. It's not as bad as last year, but
not yet.
I mean, I am just not,
At times,
I know they're going to say hold my beer, but
right now it's as bad as last year.
It seems as bad. It does seem as bad as last year, but I'm just, I don't know. I think that the pitching is giving you a little bit more quality as compared to like last year.
Yes.
And it's just everything that we know could go wrong is going wrong right now. And you're thinking like, oh, well, eventually something's got to go right. Where the hell is that time? Like when is that actually going to happen? And I want to say like, yeah, what Andrew just said, we lost Alvarez. We don't have Senga in the mix yet. I mean, listen, if we get them back, I mean, does it really matter at the end of the day? Because like if you lose one player or lose one of these players and you just completely disintegrate, are you really that good of a team?
No,
like that's like
it doesn't matter, but it does matter
like
because
also,
they're better
like,
than who's playing.
Relying on a 22-year-old catcher to basically carry you back to relevance. I mean,
he's
are
not
we really gonna? And then also,
catcher, I mean, he's special. He's special.
He is different.
Yeah,
Yes.
get the quality of contact up, and then we'll talk. All right.
I think, to kind of, you were talking about like the comparisons between last year, and we talked about, okay, the differences in starting pitching. Well, think of the way the Mets approached the offseason. They built a new rotation. They did not build a new lineup.
They're going to do it again next year.
Yeah, well, yeah, because everyone's on a one-year deal. But for the most part, this is the same lineup. Like, you add Harrison Bader, which I say add very loosely. He's now on the team. On the adds to the offense. But you bring in JD Martinez, and we've seen some good. We've seen some not so good in the moments when we need them. But I think that overall, when you had a team that struggled offensively last year, lose Alvarez, and you kind of bring back, for the most part, the same group, and you see, Alonso on the downswing. Lindor ended up having a great year last year. That's not happening right now. So, between all that, I mean, you're going to end up in a very similar situation where you're just not a very good team.
Well, it's funny, though, Frank, because you say that, and, like, we can pick apart the Harrison Bader thing. We can pick apart JD Martinez. But at the end of the day, they've not been the problem. The people that Stearns has brought in.
Yeah, the guys they expect to be good are not good. And like we talk about, like, the core all the time, like the Lindor, Megill, Alonso. I mean, Nimble's the one guy who has been doing something productive, even though he's still not even by his standpoint, his exact numbers. Like, it's not his best numbers we've seen. The power's been good. But I just think overall, it's like when you're like, okay, we're counting on you. We paid Lindor this amount of money. Alonso's in a walk year. Is he a guy we can commit to? We extended Jeff McNeil. It's like these are our building blocks for the future, but they're not getting it done in the present. So, I mean, that just makes it a very hard, just long-term vision if they're already struggling.
Yeah. It is frustrating to me that a lot of people are saying that, and not you guys, but a lot of people are coming out and talking about how Cohen is part of the problem and Cohen can't get this thing all going in the same direction, when I just find it laughable that you could look at what has gone on over the 4 years of Cohen's ownership, and you look at the fact that he finally has a real GM. He finally has a real president of baseball ops, because, you mentioned like the McNeil contract. David Stearns is not giving McNeil that contract.
No.
David Stearns knows well enough that when a guy is a late-blooming non-prospect who doesn't hit home runs and doesn't knock in runs, you don't need to extend that guy when he's not going to be a free agent until he's 34. You can go to arbitration with that guy every year. There was no reason. He could win a batting title every year, and you still wouldn't break the bank. He'd be making like $12 million a year, because that's how that stuff is valued now. There was no reason to run and sign an extension with him. And so everything that happened before, it all counts. I don't care about Pete Crow Armstrong, but people want to tell me about like asset allocation. Well, you got to go back how many GMs to find out who traded Pete Crow Armstrong for Javi Baez? It's like 4 guys. And that guy wasn't even supposed to have the job. He got it because the other guy was a piece of shit. So it's just like, you got people on the radio. Oh, Cohen's the problem. Cohen is trying.
It's lazy.
I encourage the people who blame Cohen to do what Carson, Andrew, and I like to do for fun, and that's go watch a 2013 Met game. Go watch a 2012 Met
2011.
Game.
Now you're getting
And tell me
2011.
if you see some differences in the organization and the approach to how they care about the team. I mean, like, it's just night and day. I mean, like, you can't say that they haven't tried. I mean, and that's the thing that is just so frustrating, is that the common complaint with the Wilpons was they don't act like a big market team. They're not spending money. This guy spent so much money. It didn't work out, but I don't think that's going to prevent him. I mean, whether it happened or not, is it a blessing in disguise? We'll see 12 years from now, maybe. They offered Yamamoto over $300 million. Like, that did happen. They offered Carlos Correa over $300 million last year. That did happen. He's struggled as well. So it's like there still has been that effort, despite giving the max money to Verlander and Scherzer while still paying them. And as we know, still paying James McCann. And then, you've had the Robinson Cano thing that you've been battling. Like, they've had to deal with a lot.
Yeah.
And to try to put together a competitive team with, as you've said, how many GMs, more GMs than there's boxes on this screen. It's a lot to overcome in a short time frame. And, you're asking, and Carson was talking about this all the time, but you're asking Stearns to clean up a mess from previous regimes. And it's very hard for the guy. I mean, that's That's a tough job. And you know what? Most people wouldn't take it because every year on this very podcast, we have the conversation, who's going to be the next GM? Who's going to be the next president of baseball operations? Think of how many guys decline it. How many guys don't take the job? I mean, you think Chris Young, he was a guy that, you know, he was a Met, but he said, I want to be home. I want to be near Texas. And now, you know, let's go win a World Series. Like, it's not most people wouldn't even take the job because they know how bad it is, because they know the pressure and the situation that you're coming into. So I disagree with that philosophy.
And they know the fan base won't be patient. And again, it's hard to be patient with the product on the field. I admit that. But you have to be patient. If you know baseball, you have to be patient with the process. You just have to be. I think it was Mark Healy who tweeted out today, like, it took Frank Cashin 4.5 years to turn the Mets around. And I know, you know, Mark says some zany things, but that's true.
Heels guy.
That's true, though. It did take him 4.5 years to take the Mets from irrelevant to relevant. That's the timeline, minimum. And I know that's, you know, you might as well, like, the 80s might as well be prehistory compared to how you build baseball teams now, but it still takes that. You still have to reconfigure things, get your people in place, you know, allow your time to do due diligence with your prospects. This isn't us playing MLB The Show where it's like I take over the controller from Carson and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go force the computer to trade me all the best players and I'm going to go win a World Series. That's not how this works.
Mets fans don't understand patience because they've only experienced half-assed attempts at quick fixes probably their entire fandom.
Yeah.
So when you bring in a plan, and I said this to John 1,000 times since we started the show, myself as a fan, and I've been screaming about it forever, I always wanted a legit, well-thought-out plan to move forward, stick to it, work with a plan, and establish a good culture and create a franchise that you could be proud of as a fan. And my entire life, I've never had that. Never had that. So when you tell me, and like we just said, we experienced 4 or 5 different people coming in ever since Cohen took over. We're ecstatic that Cohen came in, as we should be, because there's money and you can eat mistakes and they're not going to handcuff you for 5, 6, 7 years. You can still operate and try to be a good team. You bring in someone like Stearns, you have to be patient because, as Frank said, there is way too much garbage that's still lingering around that he has to deal with. The stuff that he decided to put his hands on, legit put his hands on this past offseason, was the starting pitching and the bullpen. And when we look at this team right now, we could say, sure, we wish we can get a little bit more out of the starting pitching in terms of innings, but in terms of the returns to this point, I know Carson put out a big tweet about, you know, the returns when it comes to the overall WAR for those guys, it's been a legit net positive. The bullpen is completely reworked, and people are still saying, "Oh, Stearns sucks. He's small market, blah blah." It's like, no, the things he decided to do.
Listen, I say it every
working.
time. I mean, I say this every time. Like, I mean, it's just every single Mets fan likes to look at this as we can't blame the pure Mets. We can't blame the guys who've been here forever. We can't blame anybody, you know, the Alonsos, the McNeils, Conforto got thrown under the bus. But we can't blame Nimmo. We can't blame all these guys who were here forever, who we liked at one point, who were good at one point, had one good year. But every single guy who just got here, we don't know anything about. Mendoza, Stearns, even Cohen. I mean, Lindor, of course. I mean, he gets a bunch of scrutiny. I mean, like, they just, like, at first hand, it's first impression, and that's it. Let's say Lindor starts off 0 for 10 in his Mets career, which I believe he did.
Yes,
Get rid of him. He stinks. Like, and that'll continue to stay in someone's mind. If they completely remember Lindor striking out with the bases loaded one time, that's all he does. That's apparently all he does.
Wait, they did the same thing to Carlos Beltran after he had an MVP caliber season carrying that 06 team. They just talk about his one at bat, not the hundreds of at bats that got them to that point.
Or
that's just how it works.
Or how about that little left-hander who threw the little bullshit cookie in the top of the fucking inning, who put us in that mess?
Yeah, I got into an argument today with somebody who said, you know, Pete Alonso is Mark Reynolds in his prime with a cooler nickname. Oh. And I just went on Baseball Reference. I looked at them side by side, and I was like, if your whole argument is that both of these players are good at only one thing, which is hitting home runs, Pete Alonso has 95 fewer home runs than Mark Reynolds right now, and he's played in 955 fewer games.
And 1/3
How
of City Field.
dare you? Yeah, at City Field. How dare you even try to make that reference? Like, you can't be serious, right? Like, that can't be a real thing.
I mean, if we want to
That's
talk
I mean,
about,
I always have the. I've
we
always
wanna
given
talk
him the
about-
Harmon
seasons.
Killebrew. I've always given him the Harmon Killebrew comparison, so I'm never on that. I'm never on that late. I mean, you see some that say Adam Dunn or like,
I've
you know,
seen
it.
that.
that's the big one, yeah.
I've seen that one.
It's just like, well, if he can hit 40 home runs, I don't care. Like,
Well,
I mean,
if
I wanna
we're
see used to do it.
talking, you guys mentioned the 2011, 2012 Mets. If you want to talk about Mark Reynolds back then, when he came into City Field and completely embarrassed us, when he made it look like a small park, when everyone was complaining, oh, the Mets have no power. But then Reynolds comes in and hits like 4 homers in the series, and they like swept us. If you want to talk about 2011, but other than that, ridiculous comparison. Absolutely
I
ridiculous.
will say this, and I know we'll probably get to the Pete stuff specifically, but as much as I think it's a mistake, as much as I like Pete, as much as I've defended Pete and his place on this team, I do have enough faith in David Stearns that if at the end of the season they don't bring him back and then Stearns holds a press conference and he talks through what Ibby is saying, his plan and where they want to go, I'm not going to be necessarily up in arms. I wanted them to keep Jake because I just, there's a lot of vibes there too of like, you want to keep the guy. You don't want to be the franchise that loses, Tom Seaver and loses Doc Gooden and loses Matt Harvey and then loses Jacob deGrom. You don't want to be the franchise that continually does that. But then when you hear why and you hear the dollar amount, I was like, okay, man, it's a bummer, but I get it. Right. And so I'll feel the same way with Alonso. I posed this to you guys in the group chat before we went on. The issue that I have is these people that are just like, he's terrible. Get him out of here. It's everything, Carson, that you just described. He doesn't do anything good. He's Mark Reynolds. He's this guy. He's that guy. He's at most empty 45 home runs I've ever seen. They all count, man. Oh, he disappeared in that playoff series. Okay, do they get to the playoffs without Pete hitting 40 home runs that year? Probably not. All the games count.
Didn't Pete have a hit in all 3 of those?
He homered in game. He homered in what's it called?
He had a hit in all 3 of those playoffs.
I think he homered in game 2. I don't remember which.
Yeah, and he was the only hit in the Musgrove game.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he's terrible though. Terrible. Let's forget about it. Terrible guy.
Yeah.
So
power hitters don't translate to the postseason. I mean, we know this. I mean, only Pete Rose and Tony Gwynn have ever been a really good postseason player. But I mean, it's just
we need more David Ecksteins. That's what we need.
Here's the thing. We all know that Pete's not perfect. He's not a perfect player. And I think we'll get into the Pete Alonso topic because it's obviously sprinkling around here. We can get it out of the way. But Pete's not a perfect player. We know what his faults are. We all know that sometimes he gets in his head a little bit. Sometimes he's swinging at some shitty pitches. Sometimes he chases some ridiculous pitches. But again, on the league average, the chase rates, the whiff rates, they're above average. They're fine. It's not like, robotic Juan Soto type of numbers, but they're still serviceable in order for him to sustain that type of power production. Now, the main thing that I would say with Pete Alonso is when you talk about letting him go or moving on from him, and we've talked about this before, I'm pretty sure we said this on the offseason. We've said this so many times. Okay, let Pete Alonso go. Fine. Who are you going to replace him with?
Nope.
There's one
it's okay because Mark Vientos got 3 hits in the last 2 days, so it's fine. Ryan Clifford, who's 20 years old, who has not played a single game in AAA and has played 2 games in AA, he's going to be the number one fix.
I thought AAA was fake. What does AAA matter? I thought it was fake.
Only for Luke Ritter.
Only for Luke Ritter, it's fake.
No, but I'm just what I'm saying is like
I get it.
It's just where's the fix? Like, okay, if you want to play Diamond Dynasty, let's play Diamond Dynasty. Where's the Matt Olson to replace him? Where is the Freddie Freeman? And before anybody says Christopher Morel, suck my dick. How about that? Okay?
God.
Somebody told me today, and I'll admit this, it's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but somebody told me today Christian Walker. And they're like, well, we're worried about long-term with Alonso, da-da-da-da-da. Christian
Walker's
Walker's been
32.
better the last 3 years. No, he's not, Ibby. He's 33 and a half.
30,
he's
okay.
almost 4 years older than Alonso. Yeah, because I
he's like, he got it ready to go.
And you know, this is a guy who bloomed in his 30s or late 20s.
In a hitter ballpark.
In a hitter's ballpark, exclusively in Arizona.
Yep.
And he's a guy who, over the last 3 years, he's been better than Alonso as a total hitter. But what about the fact that for the first 7 years of his career, he wasn't good at all? Nobody's concerned about that. Well, let's give him $25 million over 5, but let's not dare give Pete Alonso $25 million over 8. That's the other people like $200 million is too much for Alonso.
Listen,
$200 million over 8 years is $25 million a year. 40 home runs and 100 RBIs are not worth $25 million a year in 2024, 2025?
Especially, and we talk about this all the time, as a Met. Like that's the thing that always drives me nuts when we have this conversation of, oh, you're replacing with this guy, you're replacing with that guy. How many guys have the Mets brought in their illustrious franchise history that were supposed to be these great hitters? They drive in so many runs, they do this, they do that. Then when they put on that uniform, can't do it. Meanwhile, like John is saying, that consistency of, even though Pete is so bad right now, he's still on pace for over 30 home runs while struggling. I mean, that's just, he wakes up and hits anywhere from 30 to 40 home runs. Guaranteed. So and like we've said, we look at the rest of this team, there's none of that anywhere. I mean, so the value of doing it in New York, which is not a guarantee, especially in the Mets uniform, which is even harder. So having that plus the consistency, I'll take that bet. Like, I'm like, okay, I'll sign for, at least I know I get something, because for me, the way I see it, if you let Alonso go, everybody goes, because it's like we said, if you don't have Alonso, then why do I still have Jeff McNeil here? Why do I have Francisco Lindor?
Because he won a batting title.
Why the hell? Why was he the first name that came right away?
He won a singles championship.
Not Lindor, not Jeff, the first one.
Lindor wants to go back to being a Guardian because he misses the winning so much. It's like, well, then
which was completely taken out of context, by the way.
I mean, I just don't agree with
it. To Frank's point about, like, you can't assume that people are just going to come here and succeed. I'm glad you said that, because I had a friend text me before talking about the Mets, because he was just curious. Like, he's a baseball fan, but he's a Yankee fan. He pays more attention to them. You know, he asked me what's going on with them or whatever. And we were joking around when it comes to our Dynasty Baseball League, because he has Juan Soto. And he goes, Juan Soto's never going to be on the block unless, he ever goes to the Mets, because I'm probably going to want to sell him off at that point. And he goes, no, but seriously, as a Mets fan, he goes to me, what the fuck is going on over there? Because I've seen nothing but guys sign there. I'm reading the text verbatim. I've seen nothing but guys sign there, and really only Beltran has flourished in 20 years. And you look at it, like, you really look back on the signings, because people think, oh, you can just sign this guy and this guy.
And how do people treat Beltran today?
And they treat him like shit. To this day, they bury the guy, and he was the best free agent signing we've ever had as a franchise. But people just assume that someone's going to come here and succeed, which is why I harped on it yesterday.
They're always on to the next thing.
Better.
Like, this
team needs to build better from within, so you have guys, so that others can see, okay, I can implement myself into that.
I mean, you see people complain about this stuff all the time. You see people complain. They're like, oh, well, the Mets can't get anybody. Well, how about we make it a desirable place first?
Yeah. Could we not? There's not a person in the world that wasn't excited when we got Lindor. And then it was like, wow, I hope we can sign Lindor. I really hope we can sign him. And this is Steve Cohen's first move. And Steve Cohen is trying to prove that he's not the Wilpons. You trade 4 prospects. Granted, 3 of them were nothing. Jimenez is a good enough player, whatever. But you trade 4 prospects for a guy. You don't sign him. He goes somewhere else. You don't get one of the other shortstops because you think it's automatic. You're just going to throw money at somebody. They're going to come here, right? And then how does that look? That looks terrible. You look awful. Oh, they overpaid him. They reset the market. Tatis reset the market. The Padres reset the market. How quickly we forget about these things. And I know, I know this might be a semantics thing, and I put this out in the second video, but I have to say it for everybody that listens to you guys.
Oh, boy.
Pete Alonso is streaky. He is not inconsistent. He is the literal definition of consistency at the thing that he does well.
Yes.
He averages 45 home runs and 115 RBI over his career. He wakes up and he hits 40 home runs and knocks in 100 runs. People want to tell me, well, his OPS plus is down and this number's down and this number's down. And look how bad he was last year. The on-base percentage, the batting average, he's got to do better. He had 46 and 118. I don't understand. If he's so bad, then how come those numbers?
OPS plus is actually up this year.
Right.
Fucking offense.
And his batting
days,
average is
man.
up. I don't get it.
Everybody throws these
Dude.
things out there. And this is the last, I promise it's the last thing I'll say about this. Because it's these people that talk
Oh,
out
we
of
got
both
more.
sides.
Don't worry.
We got plenty of time.
It's these people that talk out of both sides of their mouths, right? Like they'll be the ones who are like, oh, I don't like advanced statistics because it doesn't fit that argument. But then they'll go and they'll use advanced statistics somewhere else.
Right.
And there are these people that are like, well, we can just like, they'll throw out, oh, you're too into the new school. Guys hitting home runs is all that matters to you, blah, blah, blah. That's what they'll say to me. That's what they'll say to Carson. They say it to Carson all the time. Then I'll turn around and I'll say, how do you replace?
Yeah, they're right.
How do you replace Alonso then? Well, Vientos will come up and he'll hit 20, and then we'll get another guy, he'll hit 20, and we'll have another. So what you're describing is replacing Alonso in aggregate, right? This is fucking Moneyball that you hate so much. You're trying to replace Jason Giambi
The
with
same
Jeremy
people who want
Giambi
Sandy
and
Alderson
Stan
on his
Hatteberg.
head's on the plate. It's the same people who want Sandy Alderson's head on a plate.
Exactly.
You know?
And I don't think that's a great way to build a team, but they hated Sandy Alderson for doing exactly that. And now you're describing that.
And the other problem with that example is that we have it on the topic list here. Mark Vientos is your starting third baseman right now. He can't be both places at once. And that's the conversation we had on Sunday about Mauricio. Can't be both places at once. So it's like Ibby was talking about earlier, it's that whole philosophy of let's just patch this, but now something else is leaking kind of thing. Because it's like, okay, Vientos, he plays first now, but okay, who replaced that production? Like you're still going to run into the similar problems. So.
Yeah, and now with Pete Alonso, I want to transition obviously deep into this conversation, just kind of flip it a little bit. And this involves two of John's favorite things, that being Andy Martino and WFAN. Now, Andy Martino went on WFAN with Salicata and Brandon Tierney.
Those three were on together.
Yeah,
they were on together.
Yeah.
He went to promote his book, which was, I guess, called The Yankee Way, basically blowing smoke up of Hal Steinbrenner's ass, because that's basically what Andy Martino does. But he also gave a little bit about the Mets situation, and they talked about Pete Alonso and his future with the team, obviously, and more of like the thought process of David Stearns of the latest that we've heard of that. And he was talking about it in terms of when Billy Epler was here. So I'm going to play that clip right here, and then we'll discuss this one. All right, so here it is.
When the hell did we get
all the
caught
one-year
up?
deals? We know that Band-Aid. See what you got. Move forward. To me, or really to you, do you think that Stearns, independent of Cohen, has his ultimate baseball answer on Alonso? Do you think he knows yet if he really wants him?
No, I think he's going to see how it plays out. But one little bit of insight we have there is I can tell you that when he was about to take over for that little window of time that Billy Epler was still there, it was like, hey, we should think about moving, at least like talking to teams about Alonso this
From
winter.
Billy's perspective.
Yeah. Just because that's what most executives would explore.
Yep.
And Stern shut that down. He's like, no, we're not trading him.
But he shut it. But he shut it down because he didn't want to be viewed as a bad guy. I think roll into town, get rid of the homegrown kid.
Well, Chaim
not
Bloom
because
did do that with Mookie Betts. Yeah.
Yeah. Not because he thinks he needs to marry himself to Pete Alonso, which is very different. If this is a year of assessment, all the one-year deals, we know that Band-Aid. See what you got. Move forward. To me, or really to you, do you think that Stearns?
All right, so that is Andy Martino on WFAN with the two Caillou twins, and they were talking about.
I didn't hear
the bald community does not accept them. Okay, just so you know, the bald community does not accept either one.
Oh no, a lot of people don't like Caillou. There's a whole situation with Caillou. Like that kid's a dick. All right, okay, but all I can say is that. This is weird because, yes, there has been the rumors about the Mets possibly exploring trade options with with Pete Alonso last year, and then obviously this offseason, there were even some connections as to where Stearns they said, okay, well, the first thing he's got to do is address the trade market right now with Pete Alonso. And I think that if you look at it from Stearns' perspective, it's most likely, yeah, okay, maybe he's not the bad guy. He doesn't want to upset these fans who, where Pete Alonso means a lot to them. Does he mean a lot to them now? Who knows? But I think that it's really hard to tell, because I think that he understands personally, because I think he understands the statement that I've really made a lot, and that being that the Mets need Pete Alonso more than Pete Alonso needs the Mets. And I think that we really can establish that, because like we've already said we're 40 minutes into this, and we said, where's the power going to come from? Like, where is that power in the lineup going to come from? You hope Mark Vientos could give you that power. I'm not completely confident in that happening, because we still haven't seen consistency from him yet. Ryan Clifford has not even seen a pitch in the major leagues yet. So, yes, there's guys in the minor leagues. There's guys who can provide that type of power, but I think that, he probably sees it as, I hope Pete Alonso has a great year. I hope that I could be in the position to pay him and keep him long term. So I don't know, Frank, I'll go to you, because
because what it reminds me of is the way I look at a lot like the Brandon Nimmo situation, where I didn't know if the Mets were going to be able to retain him, to be honest. I thought he might get overpaid somewhere. I thought, after having Conforto, Nimmo might be next. But Steve Cohen showed that, like, as him being a Mets fan as well, I think that's the other big part of this, is that, he knows what it looks like when you lose your leader, so to speak. And I just don't know. I don't really see Cohen signing off on it, honestly. It was based off the way he talks, the way he reacts. I feel like he kind of is of the same mindset of, like, he sees the value of, here's a guy who's actually done as a Met, has been with this team, is really more of a vocal leader, at least after the game, than even Nimmo is or anyone like that. So I think he's someone that he would like to keep. And, despite the player, that's one thing on the field, but also there's that other guy off the field. And, what I wonder so much is that I was hoping, at least for the Mets' sake and Pete's sake, he would use this walk year as an opportunity to be like, oh, yeah, you don't want to pay me? Watch what I could do. The Aaron Judge type walk year. Right. That was the ideal scenario, but I'm looking at it on the flip side now, and I'm like, here's Pete Alonso, who's an emotional guy. I see him reaching all the time. He is reaching at the outside pitch constantly, not on balance, so many times. And then he goes to the dugout. He's frustrated, helmet off, mad. He's just not happy right now. And I feel like if this guy just had a contract in his hand that is signed, I wonder if we'd be seeing a different player. Because I feel like at this point, it could be getting to him. He could be stressed out. And he's like, they don't want me. This is my chance. I already turned down this reported contract that, maybe we'll get into. But he's in a situation where he's like, okay, well, if I don't get it done, now my value diminishes. And you know what? Some people use that as motivation, and some people it kind of hurts. And I think, if I'm looking at it, if I'm a homegrown guy, and this is my organization that I grew up with, I've been through so much with, and they don't prioritize me, they don't really care about me, not everyone takes that the right way. And it can hinder your performance. Again, everyone.
I don't know about that. I don't really know about that, because yes, okay, Pete Alonso is a huge impact hitter on this team, but there really was not any way as to where, okay, he's going into the ARB years. It wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to get extended. We already knew that was going to happen, but I don't see it as like Stearns can come in here and say, okay, I'm going to lock down Pete Alonso. He kind of needs to bring him along with this evaluation year.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'll give you your buddy, Mr. Michael Conforto, who was offered $100 million, didn't perform, and never got that money again. You think Pete's afraid of that? Even though Pete's a much better player than Conforto, much better, but it can happen. You're one injury away. Pete's still diving. If I'm Pete Alonso and I'm in a country, why am I diving headfirst into first base? As a base runner, not as a first baseman. Like, he's one little injury away.
I understand. like in 2021 with the Michael Conforto and that, but now you're up to 2024. This team hasn't won anything. And you have to feel as to where I'm not committing to anyone right now. I have to see what I have. And Andrew's shaking his head. Like, it's just too late. It's too late in order to be like, before he goes to free agency, let's put a big contract extension in front of him. And, we're going to try and get this thing done. I feel like it was just too late. It was too late to even do that.
Okay, but here's my issue. Is that why is it that every year we have a conversation with some kind of Met this is happening? Do the Braves ever have this problem other than Dansby Swanson?
They buy out their ARB years.
Oh, yeah, so that's what I'm saying, though. But the Mets could have avoided this situation.
They're in pre-ARB
a bunch of years ago by just extending Pete Alonso when they saw that this is a consistent production piece. And I've been saying the same thing with Francisco Alvarez. These are problems that could have been avoided, and you get the guys for less money than waiting it out to go to free agency, and then someone overpays.
The only way to fix that, though, is with a time machine, though. That's the thing. Well, that's the only way to fix that.
I think you're both kind of right, and I'm not just hedging here. Like I think that Carson, the timeline is true. The Mets missed their window, and I think a lot of it is because we had 11 GMs in 15 minutes, and it's hard to, get anybody in there that can do the kind of work, Frank, that you're talking about now, and Carson, that you're talking about, that Stearns is trying to do in this evaluation mode. The thing that I think you really nailed, Frank, is that, there's this perception in sports where you go to the walk year, you put on a show, you get paid. That ain't how everybody operates. Some people, I took Papelbon to task for saying that, Diaz was soft for crying and stuff like that on our show. People react differently. Some people say, you didn't pay me, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to light the world on fire. Some people are like, you didn't pay me, I sure would like to go out there and light the world on fire, but man, that's stressful. And it doesn't mean that they're a bad baseball player because they're not built that way. Some people cry, some people don't. Some people like getting punched in the face and then they go out there and they run through a wall. Some people, if you punch them in the face, they lay down. It is what it is. And I know those are crude analogies or whatever. They're just like they're not even a one for one, but that's what we're dealing with here. I think, Frank, that part of it is, maybe Alonso just wants to be here and wants to know he's going to be here. And it sucks that we're not in a position to do that for him because of everything that Carson said. But I think you might be onto something there. I really do.
Yeah, I have no indication that he wants to leave. You know what I mean? I just think, and I don't know. This is maybe just me. Like,
it's not going to be because of Alonso.
Like, just because we live here, we get to see it more. This guy does a lot of, charity work, and I love that he does, like, for the firefighters. He does a lot of events just in New York and things like that. Like, this is his home. It's his home away from home. Like, yes, he's a Gator boy, whatever, but he's really just kind of embraced himself in this community and just, again, made him the face. Other than, I still could kind of consider him the face of the Mets, honestly. I don't even consider him to be Francisco Lindor. That's my opinion. But I just think that, again, it's hard. And you saw the way Freddie Freeman reacted. That man does not want to be a Dodger. He does not. But they gave him the
poor Freddie Freeman.
I'm just saying
he gets to lose in the first round every year. Man.
Stuff like that can happen, though, where a guy can leave even though he doesn't want to. Like, stuff like that. That's just the business part of it.
Again, but you have to think about the business side of baseball things. Like, the Mets haven't won anything. They're in this position where Pete Alonso's up for a contract,
and the Braves were just coming off a World Series win. So, and they
it's basically just like we've said, cleaning up the mess that was left before Stearns that he has no control over. And when he does look at this team as compared to like a team in Milwaukee that he did run, they were not playoff contenders that much. Like, it just. 2022, they were one and done. I mean, we're nowhere near what they were doing in 2022. Different story there, but it's like the Mets haven't had that sustainable winner with anybody here. I think that Stearns is kind of looking at it with things that he can control.
There is one thing that I think is really important here. Stearns grew up a Mets fan. Cohen is a Mets fan. And what do we lack? We are the team that is known for one reason or another, not keeping the best guys. I alluded to it before. We traded Tom Seaver Doc Gooden, off the field issues. Matt Harvey, injury. All those guys are gone. Darryl Strawberry, off the field issues. David Wright, injury. He's gone. You know, we traded Nolan Ryan. We let
Wheeler.
Justin Turner walk. We let Zach Wheeler walk. We let all these guys go. And people say to me all the time, John, do you want to win or do you want to keep the homegrown guys? I'd like a little bit of both, if I'm being honest. I would like for a Met to have 500 home runs as a Met. I would like for a Met to be here for the entirety of his career and be an all-time great player. Because when you think of all the great players in Mets history, they were not Doc Gooden was great. He still had that perfect game in that World Series with the Yankees, didn't he? Tom Seaver won his 300th game as a Chicago White Sox, didn't he? Jacob deGrom is going to finish his career as a Texas Ranger, right? All these guys.
It
Nolan
never
Ryan
ends the way you want it.
Nolan
It never
Ryan
ends the
more
way you want it.
no-hitters than anybody ever, while the Mets franchise didn't have a no-hitter. I mean, sometimes the story matters too. Sometimes
Yeah, of
for
course.
vibes, you got to bring a guy back. And I think Alonso starts to fit that mold. I think he does help the team win, but I'd be lying if I told you that that's not a part of it for me too.
All right, I'm going to play John's Twitter comment section real quick. I'm going to role play here. If we're going to keep guys for just vibes, then why is JD Davis not still here?
Dom Smith?
Dom Smith's still here.
Dom Smith stand squad. Jesus.
Yeah,
Christ.
none of those guys are
I
good.
think
That's
you have
the
to
there's
look
one
at it
thing-
from both sides.
If there's one
Obviously,
thing, if there's one thing I
I
wanted
mean,
to
he's
say real
just he's
quick-
just put in a tough position right now
Yeah.
where they lost their deadline to extend him. They lost it. They're not in it. They're 4 years away from it. It should have happened after he won Rookie of the Year in 2019.
The interesting thing
But-
to me from the business
Yeah.
standpoint is if supposedly, again, it's reported, we don't know if it's fact, turning down 7 years, 158. If that's the case, and then he turns that down, then opts to drop his agent and then moves over to Boris. The interesting thing is, and I've been saying, I think if Pete goes to free agency, he's going to get humbled because, to your point, Carson, the Mets need him more. But if the Mets were to bow out, that screws Pete because he doesn't have the money that the Mets would drive up for him. And I don't think others would give him that cash. Now, when you're a Boris client, I'm very curious if he would have the balls to go back on it and potentially even settle for less back to New York. Like if he's offered 158 prior to Boris and he
Did
says
Nimmo do
no,
that?
goes
Nimmo
to
did
Boris.
that.
Well, look on this offseason.
Yeah,
Every
I'm
Boris
curious on
client
that.
basically did that. I mean, look at Bellinger. Bellinger's a perfect example.
But it's like I'm very curious. Mainly because like I think Boris wants to wipe off this past off season as if it wasn't a failure for him. He'll pat his back. He'll pat himself on the back for as much as he can for it. But it's still not what he thought it would be. So yeah, little things like that I'm curious about, and I still call me a conspiracy theorist all you want, but I'm still also of the mindset that it wouldn't shock me if Boris wanted Pete to sign for big money elsewhere to then drive the Mets to drive the Soto price even higher to allow that to give him what he wants, which is the more money in terms of modern money for the today value to be higher than what Ohtani got because Boris wants to be the agent for the guy who has the most money. That's me conspiracy here, but just again, putting it all out there from the business standpoint, I'm very curious how Pete goes about handling it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting
It's gonna
because
be
I
interesting.
think
It
that
is.
it really will be interesting because, again, like I've said, the Mets, like in the current state that they're in, they need Alonso a lot more than Alonso needs them. So we'll see what happens, but I'm confident that it will get done. I'm confident that he will be here long term if all breaks the right way. Of course, we still just don't really know what the future is. I mean, as right now in the present, he's not really playing up to getting that contract extension as of right now.
Right.
But I think that at one point, he's gonna eventually break out of it because I don't think that he's just completely washed and he's just a complete declining player who everyone says he's going into his 30s. He's 29 right now. Okay, he's not. He's not
ancient.
35. He's
old.
not Christian Walker, who's 33 and a half, like John said. Like,
He played, and you could use this as a negative,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But people who say he's a declining player and he's a bad first baseman. Now, I don't think he's a Gold Glove first baseman, like the jersey hanging up behind me, right? But no one is. Like, nobody's Keith. Okay, let's just be honest there. But Alonso does not hurt you defensively at first base. He is not a liability at first base. He never has been. And if anything, I would argue over the course of his career, he's gotten better at first base.
First base is supposed to be one of the worst defenders on the team.
Right.
I mean, that's usually first base and left field are usually typically in a vacuum. Those are the worst defenders on the field.
Correct. And he doesn't hurt you there, which means, okay, you could use that for whatever it means, right? That's also why first basemen don't get paid like shortstops. Everybody knows that's part of the reason why.
Overall player value, positional value. That's just how it works. You know?
And the other thing is he plays every day. So this thing of like his body's not going to hold up. He's not going to hold up. How you don't?
He hasn't shown us any sign that that's going to happen.
No, the only reason why he missed games last year is because he got hit on the hand, and he was probably shitty because he came back too fast because the team needed him to come back because they have no power without him.
Yeah. And listen, I want to get into actually like what's going on the field right now, of course, with like the power and the actual. Sorry,
can we avoid the
Can we do like a?
I want to get into it,
5
obviously,
because
we do have some headlines on the bottom right here that I do want to talk about, and I think that one thing that has been a story so far on the field has obviously been the Mets' new top 4 in the lineup, which they've kind of switched this around a little bit to where guys are batting in positions that they don't traditionally bat in 1984, but this combination has actually been productive. It hasn't been fantastic, but it's been productive. It's showing a little bit more life to the offense as compared to what they were doing before everything went to shit when we talked about Alvarez getting thumb surgery or whatever you want to say is the turning point or the lowest part of the season. But let's talk about how I'm going to call this our top weapons reloaded here. Okay, so since this lineup changed, it's been solid. It hasn't been amazing, but you have Lindor in the leadoff spot, which I know a lot of Mets fans have been preaching for a long time because he's been great from the leadoff spot when he was in Cleveland. And so far, 6 for 22, 2 extra base hits, 2 RBIs, whatever you want to say. And then we have my gem in the crown, which I've been screaming at the top of my lungs for years. Pete Alonso batting second. He's 7 for 21, 2 walks, 3 extra base hits, and a home run. And then Brandon Nimmo, who's probably been like the weak link of this top 4 since this move started, but he still did homer in that Miami game, whether you want to count against Miami pitching or whatever. And then, of course, JD Martinez, who's JD Martinez, whether he's slumping or not, he's going to snap out of it. He's just a professional hitter. So this top 4 combination, I think, is the most efficient this offense can be working with what they have right now. Does it show a top-heavy lineup? Absolutely. But we've kind of known that for a while. And I'll get into the lineup later on of what I would do once a certain catcher comes back. But Andrew, you haven't spoken as much recently. I kind of forgot you were here. But this lineup combination, I don't know, faith level in it. How do you feel about this combination at the top of the lineup?
Well, I mean, if we saw the offseason content, I was banging the drum for 30 homer Brandon Nimmo in a 3 spot and having Alonso too. We thought we'd have a better version of Jeff McNeil, maybe lead off, or there's some other Starling Marte options, but putting Lindor to leadoff spot, like you said, he had his best years in that leadoff spot for Cleveland. So, and again, new ways, you put your best hitter second and give him the most ABs. Pete Alonso, again, like we had a 50-minute rant. Is he really the best hitter? Should he really be hitting second? I think he should be hitting, in the 7th hole if, the Mets Twitter got their way. But again, having Nimmo, all continue to homer and be that power threat. Hey, and then obviously JD hitting cleanup. Again, when you get a healthy Francisco Alvarez, maybe does it shift a little bit? Maybe does Alvarez bat behind him, have JD behind Alvarez? Again, that could be discussion for later. But again, it's variety, and especially how god awful this team has been. If you can find any sort of consistency, play around with it. We saw DJ Stewart lead off, which I liked. Having ShopRite Schwarber leading off, I'm okay with that. Hell, put Pete in the leadoff spot. 1-0 game first pitch, I wouldn't mind. I know he doesn't walk enough, to be like Schwarber, but hell, he gets a first pitch fast.
He walks enough. Where do you get these fucking myths from? Jesus Christ, 10% walk rate for his entire career.
Take his nerd numbers, whatever. But again, to have a guy that Lindor can do that if he gets hot, he can make games 1-0 with one swing. But again, it's a nice I like that they're playing around with it. Just find something that sticks. And again, the offense is anemic as always, and it just shows that the 4 best hitters are 1 through 4, because we don't want to talk about anything 5 through 9, but just to at least have 4 quality hitters and see maybe getting them started to at least look like a half decent offense. Keep playing around with it and see if something sticks.
Yeah. Ibby, I'll go to you. How do you feel about this combination? Bring the confidence up in the offense?
I think the way you worded it was best, where you said that for what you have right now, it works for now. And I had been talking with Aunt Rivera over at Subway to Shea about this stuff, and I said that I felt that moving Lindor out of the 3 spot and moving him to the leadoff spot and switching him with Nimmo made a lot of sense, because I thought it would alleviate some of the pressure off of Lindor and whatever. Again, I said that I think Lindor white knuckles a lot of the time when he's in big spots, when he thinks he's thinking about the contract, maybe he's thinking about what he's supposed to be and all this stuff. Similar to certain spots in year 1 when Beltran was here. But I thought moving him into the 1 spot made a lot of sense, because okay, he can revert back, just focus on getting on base, doing what you got to do, and then allow Pete to do the heavy lifting, knock you in, whatever it may be. Nimmo's been having a little bit of the home run stroke this season, and I've been saying that I felt that Nimmo was the only one on this team up until this point that's really had a heartbeat. That's the way I felt, so I was confident with him being in the 3 spot. And like you said, JD is JD, so I'm fine with it as is. And to Andrew's point before, just saying how it's a little bit different than what we saw last year. At least we're trying some things, doing something a little bit out of the box. To this point, Lindor has been established as the 3 hitter really for the most part for the last 3 years. So moving him off that spot because he's been slumping makes a lot of sense. So for what it is, and yes, it's a very top heavy lineup. And if these guys aren't going, and for the most part this season, they really haven't been, at least not all at the same time. It's been really ugly, 5 through 9. So you're putting a lot of pressure on these 4, but for what it is, for where this team is at the moment, I have no problem with it, because it's probably the best that we're going to get out of this entire lineup. So stick with it for now, at least.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that these days, with how pitching is and the high profile stuff you see, you need your top 4, your top 3 getting 5 plate appearances a game. It has to be guaranteed at this point to give you the best chance to score any runs or get any type of production against the type of stuff that's in this game. Again, like we said last week, you're not going to be facing Zach Davies or Bailey Falter or every single day. So
Xavier Curry.
John, I know that this was a lineup configuration that you were preaching before the season even started, obviously replacing Alvarez with Martinez. But same top 3, let's just say that.
Yeah, it was before JD Martinez was signed here. So I had Alvarez in the 4. Obviously, Alvarez healthy. JD Martinez isn't here yet. It's funny because I feel like a lot of us are saying things to almost in a weird way. Like Ibby, you may have just done it as like a Freudian slip, but you're like almost placating other folks, even though you buy into this lineup. You say like we got to think outside the box. Like this is not outside the box thinking for a lineup construction in 2024. Yeah. It's outside the box thinking if you're stuck in 2000 or 1985 or 1978. Yeah, then it's outside the box thinking. If you're like, oh, remember when we had Paul LaDuca hitting second? I do. That doesn't happen anymore. Remember when the Marlins had Luis Castillo and Juan Pierre hitting 1 and 2? If you had that now, that team would lose, I don't know, 140 games a year. They would be absolutely shit. So, this is something, and I'm not putting you on the spot when I say that. I just think like a lot of us are doing that, myself included, where it's like, oh, this is a little different. No, it's different for the Mets because the Mets were stuck in a fucking time warp. The Mets didn't aggressively promote their players through the minor leagues. They are now. The Mets refused to make changes in the lineup. They do now. The Mets refused to DFA guys who weren't productive. They do now because they have a guy who knows what he's doing, is confident in what he's doing, and they do it. They just do it. Not everything's going to work. To Carson's point, this has worked okay. I think they should stick with it, like you guys have all said so far, for now, because I think with the way this team is built, it is the best way to get the most out of this team. There is no reason why your best 4 hitters in any configuration you pick it should not be getting the most at bats every game when after those 4, everyone else is dog shit, with the exception of I'll give Harrison Bader a pop because he's hitting 285. He's gotten a couple clutch hits. No, listen, he's not been the problem.
I was laughing at Frank's reaction.
I know, I see that.
Dude, good bad.
No, listen, I'm gonna give credit.
No,
where
he's
credit
been
is due.
like, yeah, he's been better than I expected. Still not great, but better than I thought. I'll give him that at least.
But with that, Frank, he's been a guy who
He's
should
got
be
clutch hits. That is true.
And he
I'll
should be,
take that. Yeah.
He should be anchoring the bottom half of the lineup anyway, which is what he's doing. And then you look at Marte. Marte's been better than anybody than anybody would have thought he could be. But again, at this point, he's regressed into a role player. He used to be a star. He's not a star anymore. And he's another guy who should be batting in the bottom third of the lineup. Both of those guys, they've been okay. Everybody else, whether it's Brett Baty or Jeff McNeil or either one of the catchers that are not Alvarez. I know Nito should probably be the backup, but that's just that. He's a backup. Narvaez is garbage. So you've got it. There's no excuse to try to shoehorn Jeff McNeil into the top 4 in your lineup. There's no excuse to try to shoehorn, Starling Marte up there. Just give the guys with the most ability the most at bats. If you want to get cute a little bit more and you want to get DJ Stewart in there on days when he plays, I have no beef with that either, because I've said this before. I think DJ Stewart probably only second to JD Martinez because of track record. I think DJ Stewart has the best hitting approach on the entire team.
Yeah. And some people don't even want to say that because obviously hitting approach equals bad. It doesn't equal bad batting average. But what I'm saying is he swings at pitches that are in the zone with actual authority, does not try to make just contact with it. And sometimes it comes with hit or miss. Sometimes it has a ground ball. Sometimes he gets under it. But it's more efficient to do it that way. And I can go into it forever with that. But this is actually this is a point that I think that a lot of people feel about Alonso in the 2 spot, and it comes from Marcus. He's saying that Alonso in the 2 spot is very weird because maybe he does get a few more at bats, but I do think that if he's in the 2 spot for a long time, maybe he does not get close to 100 RBIs. Now, the thing is that I think that the individual production from Pete Alonso is going to give you production no matter what. So whether he is in that situation where he can drive in runs or whether he can actually or whether there's nobody on, one swing, he gets his pitch, he can provide you offense. Like that's the most efficient way. And I think a lot of people misconstrue that when I say, oh, well, pulling fly balls or pulling this. It doesn't work every time. Every time does not mean efficient. That's 2 different things, right? Like what it's like the high percentage shot in basketball, right? Not every single one of these shots are going to go in, but they're efficient. They help you win. Obviously, he's got to do it a little bit better. But if you're looking at Pete Alonso from the second spot, he has, let's say, I don't even know how many plate appearances he's had in his career from the second spot. Almost 500 plate appearances from the second spot, and he has his best career numbers in the second spot. So 922 OPS, 146 weighted runs created plus. So that is his career in the 2 spot. Now, granted, that was mainly he was batting second in his rookie year. The only thing that Mickey Callaway ever did right. So I think that, if you look at the production from this lineup, I think that at one point, the Mets just need to put in the best hitters possible with the best profiles to give you the most efficient offense. And even though it may come with some slumps, it may come with this or some inconsistencies, it's more efficient than this crap that you are seeing. And I want to give everybody an example. Anybody see that graphic next to our face cams? It says the standings. There is a team at the top right now named the Philadelphia Phillies. They are the best team in all of baseball. They are coming off of back-to-back deep postseason runs because they're built for the postseason. So what I thought I would do is consider the Mets fully healthy with Francisco Alvarez back. Of course, you can say there's a defensive liability here. They don't play defense anyway this year, so who gives a shit at this point?
Especially not so ballpark, you don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, who cares about the defense, right? If you want your consistent offense, why don't we just try this tribute to the Philadelphia Phillies? And this is a ideal lineup of offense only. What I'm going to show you guys here, this is what I think you should do if you want the most offense. And listen, I think you need to come in with the mindset of this is, the mindset you need with this is, if you can't beat them, join them. They can't beat them, so just damn join them. So let's give the best combination here, okay? Let me pop this thing on the screen of what I would do if you want to be the Philadelphia Phillies with what you have. That top four right there. Francisco Alvarez at 5. DJ Stewart plays left field, batting 6th. Mark Vientos bats 7th. He's playing third base. The FedEx driver at batting 8th. And then Starling Marte, because he loves to play with his head up his ass, he will play right field, batting 9th. Now, obviously, Francisco Alvarez will not be back until the mid to late June. He underwent surgery on his thumb. Could you move Alvarez down maybe to ease him in here or whatever? Fine. But what I see right here is you give these guys a pitch to hit. This top 7, the top 2, who gives a crap?
Oh, Carson, you got to put
the top 7 right there. You give them a pitch. There's most likely they're going to hit it out of the ballpark. They're going to give you an extra base hit.
Hey, you got to shift in the outfield, by the way.
Yeah, you just have a mistake. You have 2 left fielders. Brandon Nimmo.
Oh, whoops.
Brandon
Nimmo would be in center field.
Why not? Yeah.
Hey,
Brandon Nimmo would be the center field. Let's put both of them in. Put both of them in left field. Just let them chill there together.
Exactly.
They both got some good vibes, but so Brandon Nimmo would play center field, obviously. Which, again, this would be it. And I'm calling this the Philly healthy lineup because this would be fully healthy and a tribute to Philadelphia. So what would you guys think about that happening? Because, again, is it possible that you don't get any offense here? Or you don't get any defense here, and you get defensive liabilities? Well, guess what? The Phillies went to the World Series, they went to the...
Your defense is not that bad. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
You have protection. You still have guys that you can bring in for defense late in games if you needed to, right? With a lead late and close, you put Nimmo in left field, you put Bader back in center, and then all of a sudden your defense looks better, blah, blah, blah. Eventually they're going to have to call up a guy who can play shortstop and be a backup infielder. It's probably going to be Iglesias. It's probably coming at some point soon. He can go in for Vientos at third base. So, there are ways that you can move things around. And obviously not everybody is going to play every day. I see in the comments right now, DJ Stewart is better than Bader. I don't know about that. I do know about that. But
yeah, I do know about that.
But Bader is going to get his opportunities to play also. It's going to factor in. The one thing I would say, if you want to follow the adage of putting your quote unquote best hitter second, you could swap Pete Alonso with JD Martinez if you wanted to go that route. Now, that puts your truly best hitter in the second spot because I think he is the most complete hitter the Mets have. Yeah. But it does fly in the face of some of the stuff that you put out there earlier where Alonso has had some of his best numbers in his career hitting in the 2-hole. But again, if you want to take it with a grain of salt that that was in 2019, and here we are in 2024. But I would not hate this lineup. And I said something, Ibby, I think this is the exact lineup I said to you during our show yesterday.
I wonder where you got it from.
I think it might be. Or unless we joked and said that we should put DJ Stewart at second base over Jeff McNeil.
But I mean, at this point, I'm trying to.
All right. Well,
well,
I mean, if we put the fantasy land here, let's add this. How about we replace Jeff McNeil with Ronnie Mauricio next year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. And then you replace Starling Marte with Anthony Santander, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think that, if you can't beat them, again, you got to join them. Do I think we have the hitting coaches that can give us that philosophy? No. But
I have to I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the comments here because a lot of people are disagreeing with you.
Oh boy.
And Jazz, who I love, Jazz is great. Jazz said the Braves have 218 runs scored. The Mets have 209 runs scored. The offense isn't the biggest issue currently. Lineup configuration is mostly overblown. Go look at the Braves and go look at how their best players are producing, and then come back to me and let me know if we should be comparing anything the Mets are doing in a positive light to the Braves.
This has nothing
offense.
to do. This really has nothing to do with the offense being bad.
Right, and they have one guy hitting on the Braves. It's Marcell Ozuna. No one else is hitting. So I don't want to hear that they only have 9 more runs scored. Well, they're also 6 games behind the Phillies. The Braves are not good right now.
Bader's fighting out Acuna for All-Star votes.
Yeah, like for real. Like, Jazz, I love you, but like that's, and sometimes you're right that lineup construction is mostly overblown. It's not when you're a top-heavy team the way the Mets are. The offense is certainly the biggest issue currently, so I take a lot of issue with that. And you cannot compare anything to the Braves. These are not the Braves from last year. They have been abysmal by their standards offensively. Olsen has been bad. Acuna has been dreadful. The only guy hitting with any consistency is Ozuna, and fuck that guy because he hits his wife.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I mean, when I look at it, the problem is not the fact that the Mets offense isn't on par with anybody in here. The problem is that the offense is a bunch of peaks and valleys. You can't get a consistent piece of production. It's been better with this top 4. You can't get a consistent piece of production from this lineup every single day. You just can't. 2 out of 3 days. Instead, we're getting 1 out of 3 days, and then other problems obviously pop up. I think that when you look at it, it's like, yeah, in a vacuum, this lineup probably could produce. You could maximize a lot in this lineup. But are they going to do it every day? Are they going to do it 7 out of 10 days? It's just, that's the main reason why it's a problem. You just don't know what part of the team is going to show up every single day. And I think that a lineup like this, where you have an approach that can adjust to major league pitching, guys who swing at pitches in the zone with actual power and match velocity with velocity, I feel like that would be a lot more efficient as compared to piecing these guys together. I'm glad that they're trying to have a consistent lineup of that top 4. But once Francisco Alvarez comes back here, Frank hated this last year. I better not be seeing him batting 9th. Okay, that should not be happening. So, when you have a top-heavy team like this, you got to put your best weapons at the top because you need them up the most.
Well, and here's the another issue I have. Carlos, I love you. He's saying, Carson, this is nonsense. The team is hitting more home runs than they have the last 2 previous seasons, so stop with the BS. Solo home runs are worthless. They are hitting more home runs than they have in the last 2 years. They've hit more home runs, but their OPS is lower because they have less extra base hits. They have, I think right now, more home runs as a team than they do doubles as a team. And they have one triple, and it's from Brandon Nimmo. So they're down in the extra base hit department. They're up in the home runs. But if you're going to say that solo home runs are worthless, which they're not by nature because they put runs on the board, they are frustrating because they have hit back-to-back 3 home run games and lost both of them. And they're the only team in the sport to do that. I understand that. But then that brings me back to my point that I've been making all along with Alonso. It's about the supporting cast. They wouldn't be solo home runs if other fucking people could get on base. If Jeff McNeil was the on-base god, the hits god, the batting title god, well, when he was hitting in the top part of the lineup, batting 240, and then, Alonso, here he is hitting a meaningless home run after Jeff McNeil hits into a double play again on the first pitch.
Well, that just shows. Well, come on, John. That just shows that Pete Alonso. That just shows that Pete Alonso is not a leader. I mean, that just shows that because he didn't tell his teammates to get on in front of him. He should have said that. Yeah, I think that what he's saying is, strike out in front of me so you make me look better. That because he's one of those toxic guys in this clubhouse that no one likes. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really get. I mean, it needs to be a team that does this for this to be efficient.
Part of the logic, like Carlos saying, if you hit Alonso second, how is he supposed to have men on base? Part of the logic of initially hitting your better player or your best player, whatever word you want to use to describe it, in the 2-hole was that after the first inning, they come up with more men on base throughout the rest of the game. That is not a stat that I've made up. That is a known fact.
They also can attack early.
I've got a real stat for you. Who leads the team in RBIs? The leadoff hitter, Brandon Nimmo. This is the problem, and we talked about it on Sunday. They get so many singles, but they don't steal bases, and they strand them there. How many times have the Mets out-hit their opponents and still lost because they just don't get the timely hits? How many times are the bases left loaded with maybe getting one run because they walked or something like that? Yeah. But that's what it comes down to. So, sure, they're hitting some home runs, but it's like we talk about, never the timely home run. Never. I mean, when was the last time you saw like a 3-run homer? Have you seen a grand slam besides freaking Atlanta with Luis Guillorme? Like, it's like I talked about in the beginning. It's like they just find so many different ways. Like when they do get hits, it's not what the one they needed it. I mean, they do that constantly, all the time.
I put it into the comments. Bottom 5 team in OPS with runners in score position with less than 2 outs at 680. That's piss poor. That was 5th lowest in baseball. Like the worst was the Blue Jays at 614, which is pitiful. But the Mets still, again, not in good company when you're the bottom 5 in the league in terms of overall OPS and runners on. It's terrible.
And that's why I've jumped on board so much with Carson's approach to offense. And it really, like, honestly, Carson, I'm not blowing smoke. A lot of it
apparently in the chat, we've had people speaking for me and saying that I only like home runs, and if somebody doesn't hit a home run and just misses it, I want them cut. So that's not what I'm saying. But I'll let you continue to say that because I like people talking about me.
Well, listen, and here's the thing. I think you and I have had this conversation separately and privately where this is not new age stats. This is not a new age philosophy. To me, it's a little league philosophy. What you're talking about is seeing the ball, hitting your pitch. That's what you're talking. That's what DJ Stewart is doing. DJ Stewart, you can use all the things, his chase rate is low and his barrel rate on balls in the strike zone is high. And you can attach all the advanced metrics that people don't like to hear. You can attach all of them to that and get the same conclusion. But the conclusion that I'm drawing is this is what they teach you in Little League. Swing at pitches that you feel you can hit. And all he's doing, DJ Stewart, is taking it to a major league approach. He's looking for a pitch in the zone that he can drive. And he's swinging at it, and most of the time that he does, he drives it. Does it always go over the fence? Of course not, because that's not how physics or humanity works. But that's what you're looking for. That's the kind of approach that you're looking for from a modern baseball player. Especially if you don't have this unbelievable skill set. Yeah, okay. If you're Juan Soto, you can get away with a lot of different things. But not everybody has Juan Soto's eye and Juan Soto's power and Juan Soto's bat speed and Juan Soto's ability to make contact and Juan Soto's opposite field approach to hit the ball with authority the other way. Like, that guy was like created in a baseball machine. Okay? Like, not everybody is built that way. So if you're GJ Stewart and you're like, holy shit, I see Kyle Schwarber going off like this. Maybe I'm not as good as him, but man, I can do a fraction of that and be the best version of me. That's important too. I don't understand. Mickey Callaway style beats. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm checking.
I think
I gotta look at something real quick.
So, listen, I think that if you look at, I don't know, this whole offensive approach that is the most efficient in baseball because it's proven by league numbers. It's obviously, you know, the pull fly balls, the pitch recognition, not swinging at shitty pitches. It basically is in a vacuum. If I were to just specifically say, it's basically the exact same approach that you learn in Little League, just replacing the contact with power. That's literally it. That's all it is. Because if you get a home, if you hit a home run in one plate appearance and then get out for the rest of the game, let's say you're 1 for 4 with a home run. That pretty much equals the same amount of base production as 4 singles. Just a lot less work with just one swing. Now, if you say that, if you want to tell me that singles are not worth the same because the batting average would be different, well, let me ask you this. How are runs scored? If you ask Eric Chavez, they're just by magic, but it's a trip around the bases. If you get a lot of bases, if you get a lot of total bases, you set up your team for the same amount of production, just in less events.
No, you don't though, Carson. According to everybody in my Twitter mentions from yesterday, when I posted that Pete Alonso was among the leaders in the sport in total bases, they said, well, the only difference is that Pete Alonso sucks and those other guys are good.
Y'all ready for you guys want to say, all right, total bases, trip around the bases. Let's talk about it from there. Okay, and then we'll move on to Mark Vientos. We got to talk about my guy Mark Vientos because he's killing it right now. But at the end of the day, okay, Luis Ariz, right, batting champion last year. What did he hit? 370, 360. Kyle Schwarber, let's say, I don't know what was he? 190,
198, something like that.
Yeah. Same amount of total bases last season because he hits home runs. It's the same amount of production. That's the thing. The best way to look at it is a home run equals 4 singles. It may not look like it equals the same thing in batting average terms or in terms of all these stats that value the same thing on the same weight because they suck. But it's basically just looking at it as you need a total amount of bases against a pitcher. Thinking about a pitcher that you're going to face in the postseason. Let's say Tyler Glasnow. Would you rather try and string little hits together because you're not going to get that many opportunities against him? Or if you see a pitch, are you going to try and hit the thing over the fence? Like, again, it's I get it. It's efficient. Again, it's not something that works every time. Okay, Oppo home runs have happened before. Okay. They're just less efficient. They're less possible. It doesn't happen all the time. And if you want sustainable success, these are the type of numbers you look at to build a winning formula. But these days, the power hitter has to bat fourth. That's it. The power hitter has to bat fourth. All the on-base guys, this guy's got to get a single. This guy at second base has to get a heart attack for somebody to get on. And then the next guy has to lay down a perfect bunt, and it has to go at 70 degrees towards the northwest. Like, you can't rely on that stuff against this type of pitching these days. It just can't happen.
there's this adage, Carson, that I think has kind of held true through a lot of baseball, that, they say good pitching beats good hitting, right? They always say that because the pitcher's in control, right? It's the same way that, like, if you run a perfect route as a wide receiver, you're probably going to beat most cornerbacks because you know where you're going. The quarterback knows where you're going. And if he could put the ball in the right spot, you're going to beat him. The other guy has to adjust and try to figure out where you're going to be. The hitter has to adjust to what the pitcher is doing. So I do think that on average, over the totality of the game of baseball, good pitching does beat good hitting. But what people are starting to realize now, and they have over the last decade or so, is that in the postseason, power pitching and power hitting is what wins, because power hitting turns power pitching on its ear. The odds of you going up in a game, that a playoff game, a World Series game, and beating prime Justin Verlander by getting 6 hits in an inning are very small. The odds of you getting a base hit, a walk, and then a 3-run home run and winning that game 3-0 in the only inning where he ever made a mistake are high.
You need to take what you can get because you don't know how many opportunities you're going to get throughout the game. And that's how it's going to be. You're not going to, again, you're going to face the best pitchers. That's how it is. Okay. And again, I'm pretty sure, what is it, since the StatCast era, I think it's like teams are, I don't know if this is directly, but it was something in this ballpark. It was like teams are 83 and 21, something like that, when they out-homer their opponent. Now, 83 and 21, that's not every time, but 8 out of 10 times in that rate, that's very, very efficient. You know how everybody says the old saying, and I'll flip it around to the old-fashioned people who like this table-setting crap. Don't we always say that a hitter or a good hitter fails 7 out of 10 times? So if something happens at a 33% rate, which is pulled fly balls, by the way, it's basically the same thing. You're just replacing the contact with power. And people see that as an inconsistent way to look at it. But again, that one home run is equal to the same amount of offensive production for your team, not your stat line. I don't give a shit about the guy's stat line. For your team, that's the same amount of production to score runs. So again, you can't rely on single after single after single after single. The 2022 Mets learned that lesson the hard way. They faced Yu Darvish, they faced Blake Snell, they faced Joe Musgrove. All really good pitchers. Mets beat up on Snell because 1 out of 3 times their offense works. Just like it is now. Wow. So, at the end of the day, you just have to look at it as a trip around the bases. That's how you look at it. And the most bases you can get is the most production you can get for your team. I don't care about the guy's individual stat line. I want to have a team that's efficient. I don't need, the Mets are 30 and 85, but it's okay because Pete Alonso has 42 home runs. Like, I don't care about that. And that's the same thing that goes on with Jeff McNeil and the batting title shit. I don't give a shit. I don't care. I want the team to win. And when the team isn't winning, you need to form that together. Again,
it's misconstrued. No, that's not what this
is not what I'm saying.
It's not swinging for the fences. People think looking for your pitch
quality
to
of contact does not mean hitting home runs only. That's not what that means.
I don't know how many times we can have this conversation. Sorry, Jazz. Shout out to Carlos, by the way, leaving because we don't agree with him and then trying to poach people over to another show. Great. Appreciate the support, bro. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's just like, I like CP and Rob, and I think they do.
Yeah, I do. I love them.
Shout out to them. But that's such a Bush League nonsense thing to do.
Yeah.
We're giving you your due. We're talking, this whole damn episode has been about stuff that you're bringing up, but because we don't agree with you, you're going to take your ball and go. Oh, and by the way, just to be 100% clear, you're wrong. Objectively, you're wrong. Anybody in baseball will tell you that you're wrong. But okay, have fun over on the other show. Sorry, I'm pissed. I don't like that shit.
And I hope you enjoy that show. Both CP and Rob, great guys. So
love them both. Yes.
Great guys.
Great guys.
You should tune into their show because their stuff is good. But it's just like I just thought that's so frustrating to me. Of like, oh yeah, well, I'm out of here. I'm gonna take my ball and go home because I haven't got enough attention, even though we've been giving you nothing but attention.
Yeah, we're an hour and a half and we've gotten through, I don't know, two of the segments that I wanted to go through. You know, like. Yeah. Again, we're here for you guys. We're here for you. We're here to talk to you. But it's like, come on. I mean, if you're gonna take this stuff type of personally, come on. It's like it's a discussion that where we're basing it on facts. And if you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it. At the end of the day, you can't please everyone. I mean, I'd love to answer every single one of these comments at the same time, simultaneously on 3 different streams. But it's not gonna be able. We're not gonna be able to do that. Okay, so we're just trying to keep it with the flow of the show right now. And I want to get into, speaking of hitting, Mark Vientos, because Mark Vientos has had quite a productive week since returning to the Mets lineup, since coming back from AAA Syracuse, which has been basically purgatory for him for the last few years. You know, he's basically going for the AAA home run record with the, you know, Crash Davis from Bull Durham, if you know that reference. But
Mike Hessman's fine. It's all good.
Yeah,
don't disrespect Mike Hessman like that. Come on,
Travis Tyrone. Do you want me to go there? I mean,
well, no, Hessman is the minor league home run champ. We can't put disrespect on a former Met.
Okay. Anyways, so Mark Vientos. Now, one of the main things that has really been a level of concern, obviously, at the third base position has obviously been Brett Baty, who has not been able to string any sort of consistency whatsoever in his somewhat limited time in the major leagues. And I asked everybody in the chat, in our poll, I asked them, should the Mets move... let me try that again because I just had a stroke there for a second. Should the Mets option Brett Baty to AAA Syracuse? 84% of you guys said yes. 16% of you guys said no. Now, I think that at this point, Mark Vientos has earned the right to continue being in the lineup every single day. Mm-hmm. I think that from what he has shown, from his hitting tools to overall quality of contact, and I'll say that again, he's been able to give you somewhat production from the middle of the lineup. And I think that when you look at what he's been able to do, and I'm going to show his batted ball stuff. So if you're not a fan of exit velocity, I'm just going to say this may be a trigger warning for you. But for what we've seen in the little time since he was called up, notice we're seeing in that little red bar right there, those are all considered hard hits into the StatCast. That is 95 miles an hour or higher. Those are considered hard hits. Now, overall, from what I'm seeing and what I've really, really liked is, do you notice anything to the opposite field? No. And guess what? He's producing at a unsustainable 1100 OPS or whatever it is right now. But every single time when he sees a pitch that he gets, that he likes, he's going to make really good contact with it. It's all about basically putting that, just getting that good enough window, that good enough window where he can do that. And I think that one thing that has always concerned me with Mark Vientos is it's not really the fact that he has a long swing, but he has a very, I don't know if it's just heavy swing, but it's just a very heavy swing that I'd say that when he follows through, it seems like it's really impossible for this guy to actually pull the ball. It's really hard where he has such a big barrel that don't look at me like that. He has such a big barrel of the bat that it's like it's a heavy bat, right? So he's not able to lift it, right? So, but as of right now, you're definitely seeing him. You're definitely seeing him able to just, I don't know what it is. It's just there's a lot more confidence in him where it doesn't seem like the pitch selection has been that much of a problem yet. Again, this is a very small sample, but again, there's a really, really good tool that plays in this game. That's called quality of contact. That's called power, which he has, and he has 100%. He has 100% displayed that in his little time. And I'm hoping that the Mets don't make that same mistake they made last year where 2-hit game, he gets a double, he hits a home run, and then they bench him the next 2 days. So I'm hoping that this continues. And then there's the other guy on the other side, the left side of the plate, named Brett Baty. And it has really been a struggle for him considering quality of contact. It's a complete different story. You look at this.
Oh, God.
At this point, he's just been producing at this lateral comparison to last year. Last year was tough for him.
Fantastic title.
I mean,
that's great.
Brett in debt. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's Brett in debt because you think about it. I mean, he's in debt to batted ball luck right now. He got pretty lucky at the beginning of the season here. Remember when he was batting 300? That was great, wasn't it? Well, look where it's become now. He's in the same mid purgatory that he was last year. He's bowling the ball a little bit more. I mean, his swing just stinks. Right?
It's clear as day that Brett Baty is going to leave this team eventually, which will make a lot of people happy. And he's going to go somewhere with a better hitting, a better hitting coach. Yeah. He's going to find something, and people are going to be like, "Oh, this guy could." It's like it's not going to happen here. It's not. I said this year that they were going to give up on him. I said that it was going to be like 250 at bats. I remember I said that at the beginning of the season.
You know how
and I think he's at 130 right now, and it's not there, and it's not going to be there. He's going to succeed.
Quality of contact, expected weighted on base average. When I say it, 263. That is in the 4th percentile. So that's the bottom 4% in all of the league right now. That's really bad. Okay. When you look at Brett Baty's struggles, okay, and I'm going to ask the chat this once again and, give you a counterpoint to it. Sending Brett Baty down to AAA. I've talked about this before. AAA hitting is so fluctuated these days that you're just facing a lot of pitchers with the same problems. There's a reason why big pitching prospects skip AAA or just get 2 starts in AAA, because it is such a fluctuated hitting environment. The average hitter in AAA is like 800 OPS. Like, that's how ridiculous that level is. So what is he going to learn down there? What confidence is he going to build up if you send him down, you call him right back up? It's going to be the same thing. I mean, how many times? I mean, I get it. He's 24 years old. He's still young. But like, we are not seeing a good enough hitting profile whatsoever to actually sustain anything at the major league level. And it's not just like hitting for power or just anything. It's just we are not seeing any of his hitting tools display to the major leagues. And I don't know how much you can wait. The only thing that puts us in that waiting stool is the fact that, well, Brett Baty has the 3rd highest bat speed on the fucking team. And yet again, he has the worst quality of contact of anybody. Now, bat speed is one of those little tools that can get you quality of contact, but it's one of the main things. And for some goddamn reason, this guy is the occasional singles hitter. Doesn't even walk that much. The discipline's not even there. Chasing all over the place. I don't even have his play discipline stats up here, right here. I mean, they're abysmal. They're the same level as last year. You're seeing like these microscopic improvements. The defense has been great. It's been fantastic. I give him all the credit in the world. But is this literally what you want from a 1st round pick? No. I don't want that. Absolutely not. Third base is it can be a defensive position, absolutely. But like for someone who was seen as a 70 raw power hit tool and a 60 level hit tool or whatever, raw power, game power is a 65 or whatever. This is it. This is like that's what we're like. This is the guy right here, right?
You have to send Baty down.
You do,
simply because, and you're right about the level and what guys and like certain guys can learn things at AAA, like you said. Pitchers might stop there and pitch 3-4 times and then move on to the next level, whatever. Brett Baty has maximized what he can learn at AAA, so it's not even about him. It's about roster construction. Now, I understand that the Mets needed to make a move. I was having this conversation with people 3 weeks ago. Hey, Vientos has got to be up here. And I'm like, the problem is after Ronnie Mauricio got hurt and the fact that Acuna is not ready and Jet Williams is hurt and not ready, the Mets don't have a backup shortstop if they let Wendell go and they bring up Vientos. They just don't have one. Now, push came to shove, rubber met road, whatever you want to say. Wendell was so bad. He was hurting us on offense, hurting us on defense. He had to be removed from this team, and they had to go get a guy who was producing that could maybe give you something on offense. So they said, hey, Lindor, you like to play every day? Fucking suit up, champ, because you're going to be in there every day while we figure this out. But that is not something that is going to endure, because right now your backup / emergency shortstop is either Brett Baty or Jeff McNeil, and that's not going to be a recipe for success in any way, shape, or form. So just for that, Brett Baty has to go down, because Brett Baty is providing you with no offense. His defense has been wonderful. I give him all the credit in the world for making the improvements there, but he doesn't give you enough offensively to justify even platooning him with Vientos. Vientos deserves the shot that Brett Baty got all of last year and to start this year. He's hitting now. Will it sustain? I don't know. Is he going to be a dumpster fire at third base? Well, he hasn't been so far. Let's see. But I think you got to go get a guy like Iglesias, or, pick your favorite flavor of backup infielder that's in the minor leagues. I don't really care who it is. You got to get one of those guys. And the only person that can go down is Brett Baty. So, Carson, you're right about a lot of it, but it's a numbers game. Yeah, it could be Luke Ritter. It's whoever it is. Brosseau, right, is the guy that they got from Milwaukee.
What I think is this kind of displays on the only, I think, I'm not going to say mistake, but just a very big, the biggest head scratcher I think that David Stearns move that he made. Obviously, that just being Joey Wendell alone, but what I'm saying is they didn't bring in anybody with like a versatile skill set to push a guy like Brett Baty or push a guy like Ronnie Mauricio before he was even hurt. And instead they said, okay, well, let's just get a cheaper version of Guillorme in Joey Wendell. Like, that's how they addressed that. There was no Gior Shella. I mean, I'm sure he was in consideration. There was no, guys who could actually start in a pinch if that rookie does not do well. With Vientos, obviously, there's a little bit more to push him because the designated hitter position's a little bit different. But now you have him slotting him into third, and it seems like the pressure's completely off of him. I mean, in the small sample that he's been given to actually prove something, he's been a very solid hitter. And listen, offense can definitely contribute a lot to a lineup. We know this. I mean, you need offense there. He's an offensive guy. The ball's not going to be hit to him at third every single time. So I'm not saying that Vientos' defense is a liability. And also it goes back to my other point. They don't play defense at all anyway. So you might as well just lean into it at this point. And what really pisses me off about this whole situation with Brett Baty and Mark Vientos is that Brett Baty can play like so much shit for a week. He can play like shit for 2 weeks. There's no accountability to this guy. He literally is the golden boy of this organization. And it's no disrespect to Brett Baty. I'm sure he's a fantastic big, the big Texas boy or whatever Andrew called him like a few years ago. But at the end of the day, there's no accountability. And then you see Mark Vientos, who I'm sure they're less high on compared to Brett Baty, because I think it's been established. Mark Vientos will hit. He'll have a ridiculous game. What is it? 3 hits or 2 doubles and a single or whatever. He has a great game. And then they bench him. Like, you'll bench him. It doesn't take much to bench Vientos. He can do whatever, like, just because of his defense. But then it becomes a moot point now. Because they're bottom 10 in every defensive category. So who gives a shit at this point?
I also don't understand, not from Aunt Rivera, not from Matt, but the one from Jazz and the comment before that. Sure, okay, emergency position players are always overrated. You just need them for the rest of the game and then call up somebody.
Devin Marrero, Frank?
Okay, sure.
They used to care a lot more about emergencies before.
Listen, sure. Okay, if that's going to be the reason why you want to keep Brett Baty on the team and just sit him on the bench because you don't want to go get a different guy, that's fine. And then from Jazz, Iglesias, Ritter, and Bannon are not going to move the needle even as backups. I don't think backups are supposed to move any kind of needle. I think they're supposed to back up. So again, if those are your 2 reasons why Brett Baty stays on the team, fine. I don't care.
I don't know if I said this.
Play Lindor till his fucking feet fall off. And then you know what? And then jump in his wife's mentions on Instagram and tell him what a piece of shit he is. Okay? Because he's not good. Because he plays 162 games every year. Every day, and then go tell his wife how much he sucks, and then wonder why he white knuckles because he wonders, oh my God, I hope I hit a home run in this big spot so that people don't harass my fucking family. Jesus Christ.
All right, so yeah, I mean, listen, I think that I don't know. I've just kind of found it as Mark Vientos just seems like a guy, and this is just based off of what we're seeing. He just beats the pressure a lot better than Brett Baty to me. He really does. And I've talked about this before is, yes, he does have a flawed hitting approach. He does have some holes in his swing. He has his shortcomings. But at the end of the day, with his type of approach where he doesn't chase that much, the pitch selection can get better. But at the end of the day, I feel so much better with Mark Vientos up in a high leverage situation than I do with Brett Baty. Because I know that Brett Baty, 6 times out of 10, the guy is going to just roll over to second base. I mean, yes, Mark Vientos has had those launch angle issues before, but they've gotten better. Not worse or haven't stayed the same. Mark Vientos has developed as a power hitter. He's developed as a bat. Brett Baty's been the same bat for years. The same bat that just hits the ball on the ground, empty exit velocity, makes minimal contact with breaking balls. Has the defense improved? Absolutely. But overall as a hitter, hitting prospects, hitting talent, which we've talked about, has been a problem for the Mets. Maximizing this type of hitting talent. I don't see it. I don't see it with Brett Baty. And to be honest, I don't even know what they were thinking drafting this dude in the first round 5 years ago. That's how far back I'm going. Because this guy does not look like a major league hitter whatsoever.
Especially
and
that
can
now.
say a lot about the organization too.
Yeah.
But dear God, I mean, at the end of the day, what is this guy actually providing offensively for you?
Zero.
You hope and pray. You hope and pray that he does something.
Zero.
It's nothing. Exactly.
Just off of the eye test. You don't even need to bring up all of the numbers that you brought up, and I'm glad that you did. But at the same time, if you just sit there and watch what Brett Baty has been doing, and then you watch what Mark Vientos has been doing in the short time since he's been recalled, then he's like 7 for his last 21, extra base hits, couple home runs. Like he's doing well. Just watching it, you can say Vientos looks like he belongs. Vientos looks like a hitter. Like it just to the basic fan, the one who doesn't want all the numbers. You're just watching him and you go, this guy looks like he can provide something. Now you want to tailor.
Not in the Alonso level, like people say who want to get rid of him. That, like, you know what I mean?
Not like that. Not like that. But you're just watching
exactly.
And go, this guy looks like he can actually hit. When you watch Baty, you're like, this guy is getting blown away on fastballs. He's late. Everything's on the ground. It's like, this guy looks overmatched. It doesn't look like it's going to work. And it's been that way. I've said, I wanted to give him time, but I said 250 at-bats was going to be the max number this year. We're at 130. And I'm at the point now, I'm just like, I don't think it's going to happen here. It'll happen somewhere else. It's not going to happen here. It won't.
Yeah, I think for me, Vientos has
Easy,
just
Hulk, easy.
Yeah, I just think Vientos has been more productive in a shorter amount of time. I mean, you just look at the at bats. I mean, just he has more doubles than Baty already, and like 100 less plate appearances. So
Does he really?
He has more doubles and like 100 less plate appearances, and I think home runs are like one off.
I'm gonna have more doubles than Baty in like a month or two.
Yeah. So I mean, what it comes down to is like we've talked about this team being, and with Baty just being singles, if that's what he's doing, he's not stealing a base. So it's like we're talking about like total bases, pure production. Vientos has done more in a less amount of time. Now, there's two things going on here. I put in the chat, he has the 1,134 OPS. Obviously, that's not going to last. So he's done well in the limited amount of time that he's got. But also, Baty has just been so bad that Vientos being decent seems like a big upgrade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And listen, I think that, I don't know. I think that at one point, he's going to come back to earth a little bit. He'll have his struggles or whatever, but again, it's just like I go back to the quality of contact. He's shown a lot more. Like he's had a lot more elements to his hitting that have shown that maybe this guy can produce. He's not going to produce at the 222 weighted runs created plus that he is at right now, but maybe this guy is going to give you 110 if you give him consistent playing time at one point. Maybe this guy could give you 25 home runs this year if you give him that consistent playing time. Maybe there's a possibility if he's seeing the ball well, because it's an if with Mark Vientos. We still don't know. But then you go to Brett Baty and you're like, does he even see the ball at all? That's what I wonder. Does he even see the ball at all? And I'm really just tired of making these excuses. I really am. Like, okay, he's fine. I give it time. He's 24 years old. He needs glasses. He needs contacts. He needs a new wardrobe. Like, call a spade a spade. Like, at one point, what has he had? Like, almost 600 plate appearances in the majors already. It's a good enough time to know what you have here. And yet again, he can always improve. But from the first plate appearance to the 600th plate appearance or 500th plate appearance, it's just been lateral. Nothing has changed. So at one point, you got to figure out what you're actually going to do. I don't think AAA is going to help him at all, but I would just send him down to AAA because he belongs there right now. He belongs in AAA. And again, I saw that a lot of people were talking, like I saw multiple people saying what I'm saying about Baty is harsh. It's not personal. This is the business side of baseball. If you're not providing it, if you're not providing the production we need you to give us, you're out of here. Like, I mean, it's the heartless part of baseball. That's just how it is. And there's only so many chances we can give you. And God have the Mets given him. He's been the everyday third baseman. They have put Mark Vientos at AAA. They have, they sent all the way to the Dominican Winter League. They tried to tranquilize Ronnie Mauricio so he can play for a year. They've done every single thing possible to give the job to Baty. And it's not working. So at one point, you got to call the spade a spade and move on. And maybe at one point, you got to just look at it and say, maybe Mark Vientos is a better fit here. At one point, you got to say that. But again, Andrew, you're a huge Baty fanatic. I know that you were really endorsing him when he was in Brooklyn Cyclones uniforms. How does it feel to be wrong, you piece of shit?
Wow, I see how it is. Again, great guides. Be good at baseball. You can miss 7 out of 10 times. But if you got those 3 right, you live on those 3.
Well, I mean, it's just like, I mean, what do you think with that? I mean, if I don't know how, because I feel like we've had this conversation way too many times.
Yeah,
it's just at one point you're like, it's just he's 24 years old. He's not 21.
I know.
Like,
I know Daniel is joking in the comments because he mentions like the curse and everything, but just to take this whole conversation full circle, because again, I know he's being tongue in cheek. So Daniel, not a shot, but This is a sentiment that I know people have of like, since the Mets are cursed, they get rid of Baty and he does great in a smaller market. They're worried about, some people are legitimately thinking this, I guarantee you, yet they're not worried about getting rid of Pete Alonso and having him go on and hit like another 350 home runs somewhere. Yeah. But Baty, who's never done anything in his career, he's going to be great somewhere else. Yeah. Pete Alonso, who averages 45 home runs in his sleep, oh man, cannot wait to get rid of this fucking guy because he's going to be dog shit. He's not going to age well. He's terrible. But Brett Baty, man, you just wait till he's playing in AAA The Moon, and he's going to be fantastic. I don't even think he can hit home runs in a place with zero gravity. That's how fucking bad his swing is.
Yeah, I just don't see any changes being happened. Like if you see some improvement, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing any improvement, and not to mention, even when you look at him playing in AAA, it's the same. Like it's the same issues, just in a fluctuated hitting environment. And I think that that's how you kind of look at it. It's like, maybe this guy is just a quad A player. Maybe it is. Maybe he is. But, you know, you got to think of it as, what is the best for this team? They gave Brett Baty enough playing time. I mean, I think that at one point, you got to cut it off. You need instant impact. Not instant impact, but you need positive impact from first-round picks, or they're a bust. He hasn't been that. It just has not been the situation with Brett Baty since the beginning. He's had moments. Definitely has had moments, but there hasn't been any consistency. And now it's time for... Now it's time for them to give that chance to Mark Vientos. Ibby, I'll go to you for no reason at all.
Yes.
There you go.
No, I mean, just if I want to say anything on the Baty stuff and Vientos, look, I've joked about and said on my show that I thought Brett Baty had the talent to do things. I had also said that I was nervous about him when it came to the ground ball rate and how it was really established ever since he was in Brooklyn when he would hit the ball on the ground at a 40+% rate, and how that was going to be a potential issue. And I've said how this team has had a hard time developing hitters because, you know, there's no changes that are made when you're noticing these things, and why we're still not making changes when said things are still happening. That tells me that it's a systemic issue in terms of offense for this team. And that needs to change, which is why I really do think that he has the talent, but it's never going to materialize here, at least with the people that you have, you know, implementing things and whatever he's listening to or refusing to do, whatever it may be. I just don't think it's going to work here. And I think what Mark Vientos has done, he's said the right things. He's gone down every time he comes up. He does something well, he gets sent back down. Now he's here again. He's playing well. It makes all the sense in the world. I said it at the start of the season, that if Brett Baty came out and he faltered, that I was going to judge David Stearns on his ability to shift off the idea of defense, because I always said that Baty had the inside track because of defense. That was the main reason. That if he was able to shift off of that and say, look, to what you just said before, Carson, call a spade, it's not working. I will sacrifice the defense and I will play this guy because he's going to give me something that I need, which I said at that point would be he's playing because the team needs offense. This team desperately needs offense. He's provided it. He deserves every opportunity. Nothing over his shoulder. That's why Baty shouldn't even be on the bench right now. Nothing over his shoulder. Nothing happening along those lines. Mark Vientos, May 23rd, 2024, until further notice, is your everyday third baseman. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and listen, we come with the philosophy. We go with the philosophy of, the only way these guys are going to develop major league talent is to play in the major leagues. Baty has gotten that opportunity, and he has not ran away with it yet. And Mark Vientos has not gotten that opportunity yet. Every single time he's shown it, he's been benched the next day, or he's just been used as a part-time player. And for some reason, that continued to be the trend for a long, long time. I think that, yes, in terms of the Mets offense, Baty should be sent down to AAA because he is playing like he belongs there. In terms of Baty's future, that's not going to help. It's not going to help because he's not going to face major league pitching. And that's going to be an issue for him. And, you know, in some points, you do feel bad for the guy at one point because of how this development has kind of failed a lot of hitters here. And then they go somewhere else and they hit better. But for some reason, the Mets can't do any wrong, according to a lot of it's all the Stearns. It's Stearns' fault that we draft. I can't believe Stearns drafted Brett Baty. You know, I really can't believe
What
that.
a jerk.
What a dickhead.
Total.
But I mean, anything else on this topic? And we'll obviously move on to we'll skip Tyler Megill because I think that's a discussion for another day. I think we want to see a little.
And he's not that important, so it's a good choice. Good choice.
But we'll wait for Frank and John to come back here. Justin Turner's has matured in LA. I think that, you know, it comes with a lot of Mets fans, and we can obviously go on forever, but it's really hard for a lot of Mets fans to realize that the organization is the problem, and it's not really the players that are there that are the problem. Now, as for like free agents that come in here and go under that influence of the Mets, you know, you never really know, you know, if they turn to shit or whatever, what the hitting coaches are telling them. But what I think that in terms of developing hitting, you know, are you, and this goes for the Pete Alonso conversation as well. Are you confident that anybody could, even if they do, replace him with the hitting development that has had such a shitty track record recently? I don't. Like I don't. And that's why I think that if the Mets actually revitalize this hitting department, it would not be this hitting development. You know, it will be a lot different in the sense of hiring actually the right guys that are meant for this century of baseball. But again, it's like if the Mets actually cared about, like, you know, trying to make changes and make these players better and develop them, this probably would be a different story. But this has been a consistent situation where they don't develop enough hitters. They don't have that next guy. You know, like the Pete Alonso, the Jeff McNeil, the Michael Conforto, or Brandon Nimmo. That's a select few out of all of these draft picks, all these guys that they have signed who have just flopped.
I believe the Mets are last in baseball in terms of developing players out of the minors. I remember I saw that. I think it might have been last year. I saw that they were dead last by a good margin in comparison to other ones that come up to the majors and make a difference. Again, the overall number at the top was something small because, again, a lot of these guys just flame out and they're not good enough. But yeah, they were dead last, and that's why I've always said that it's a problem. And it speaks volumes when you see guys leave here and they find success. And I think it's beyond the New York thing. I think it's well beyond just the idea of New York being tough. I think a lot of them are just failing because the coaching staff and just the overall hitting environment is not helping them. That's why you see Conforto do a little bit better post, you know, his rough last year, but he's doing solid in San Francisco. And then you see the success that Travis d'Arnaud has had, and Justin Turner was mentioned in the comments, and Daniel Murphy continues his run when he was in, like, little things like that. It's like that speaks volumes. It's very loud when those things are happening, saying, well, you know, it's not working in New York. That's very telling.
Yeah, I think that it's just very it is very concerning as to where, you know, you continue to see these you consider to see these trends and nothing seems to be done about it. And now you have a guy at the top that you think that can really improve this sort of mess. And again, and I think that a lot of Mets fans look at it as he should fix it immediately. That's not going to happen. Again, development is development. It's not this is the quick fix. I think that's the bill of goods that's just been something that has really been pushed into the minds of Mets fans for a long time. It's that bill of goods that we have this quick fix, this guy's going to fix it, and then when they underperform, it puts them in another tough spot and they go after the next thing. So they're trying to build this sustainable type of thing in hitting, which I think that they need to completely revamp, and Stearns needs to bring in his own guys. But at some point, you're going to slowly start to see this thing develop after just, decades of incompetence of how they have developed these types of hitters. And I think that pitching has already been in that advanced stage, obviously. But with hitting, it's going to take a little bit of time, because I personally think that the best hitters in our farm system, they're in the lower levels right now. They do a lot of really good things right. There's some guys that aren't really talked about as much, but some of these guys at the top, the Jet Williams or the Luis Sano, I don't know what the hell they're going to do at the major league level, at the major league level, because there hasn't really been things that are going to translate that well that I see from them. But again, they still can be really good players because they do have the speed tool, and that's it. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I don't know, with a lot of these guys at the higher levels that, they perform in the minor leagues, you bring them up, they can replace this guy. So right now they're at that point where they're trying to transition into that. Frank, you've been gone for a while. John had to step out. He sends his love to the chat. And he appreciated screaming at all of you on social media and also in this. And we'll end. Frank, I'll go to you on Brett Baty, all this hitting development stuff like that. All of this, you can go that, and then we'll go into.
Yeah, I think
we'll go into everybody's favorite segment. All right.
I mean,
afterwards.
Yeah, I've talked about it a lot, and our buddy over here, he talks about Seth Lugo. I mentioned him, I think it was Sunday as well, and even guys like Michael Wacha having great seasons. Like, and that's kind of where my critique of the coaching staff goes. Because a lot of people talk about like, oh, Hefner's doing a good job, and blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't know. I just see like so many guys, whether it's hitters, whether it's pitchers, leave the organization and turn out to do better. Obviously, Justin Turner was the biggest example, but there's been several others since. And overall, it's just very frustrating. And I think that it would take a lot to kind of fix that. I've talked about we've had a million GMs. But Hefner's been consistent. Chavez has been here a little bit of time now, not long, but I just think that, it's not something that is solved right away with like one move, two moves. It's like a big philosophy thing that's, top to bottom in the organization, with the lower levels, the kind of habits that you're building. It's like everybody has to be on the same page, because if the guys are being instructed one way in the minor leagues, like this is how we approach hitting, this is what we do. Then you get to major leagues and Chavez like, okay, forget all that. Here's how we're going to do it here, because this is how I coach it. That's dumb. Like that is just not a good process. And that's what leads to a loser. So I think that as long as they feel internally that everyone's on the same page and all the minor league systems moving to the major leagues, that everyone's in sync and they actually have a good vision and good approach, then it will be better. But I've just seen it too many times, and it is very aggravating when you see it both with hitters and pitchers. So that would be like the next big change I would like to see, is if they did something like that. Because earlier we talked about, the top four of the lineup changing. At least they changed something. That was nice. But I think that, if we're not going to add in players, which we know we're not until the trade deadline, if we're even in any kind of contention, the only move you can actually make to show like, okay, we're trying to change things up would be changing a coach, whether that be, and I think right now Chavez is the obvious one because of all the different problems we've talked about with the offense. And really, guys underperforming. Like if, let's say this was a team that had, like I talked about in the beginning, like those brutal teams that were just no talent. Guys are just no good. I'd be like, okay, I can't fault the coaches too much. But when you have guys who are supposed to be good, like
Getting
Lindor,
worse.
like Alonso, when they're supposed to be good and they're not performing, some of that goes on the coaches. I mean, if you have talent, the talent needs to perform. And there's that whole saying, like, the hitting coach can't be in the batter's box for them. But I think that would be the next change I would like to see. And again, just kind of see if it gives you different results, because I mean, that's really the only change we're going to see. If we're keeping the same lineup, even if you do a different order, if it's still the same players, I think just having a different philosophy, a different approach, I would hope that would lead to different results and hopefully better results.
And again, this is something that I think that Chavez and Barnes are kind of in the same branch. I think that overall Barnes has kind of been, I think that in terms of getting these guys on like a power surge or producing a lot more offense with this top heavy lineup that they had, I think he did a decent job with Brandon Nimmo, and he did a good job with Lindor last year. I think that I liked the hitter that Pete was being last year, but I know that a lot of people don't. But, DJ Stewart, they were able to maximize that a little bit, but it's not even the terms of maximizing. It's the fact that you have hitters getting noticeably worse under you. And that has been a problem with Jeremy Hefner as well, but we don't even need to get into that. That's a different story. But you just see a lot of hitters kind of decline. They just don't, even if they do produce, they're not maximizing what they can do with the raw tools they have. And that can be very, very frustrating. And it can't be just fixed with Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani. It's a lot deeper than that. And I want to leave it at that because I feel like there's so many rants we can go on with the coaching staff, because it's ran in a very frustrating way of they continue to, do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result, the definition of insanity. So let's move over to Studs and Duds, which is our favorite segment here. Based off of this series alone, one player that has played well that we want to give flowers to, and then one player that needs to step it up or was not really good in this series. Andrew, I will start with you with Studs. Who do you got?
I mean, again, it's extremely hard to pick guys when you get swept out of the ballpark. But you know what? I'm going to go with the first-time answer, I think. I don't know, God, and the last time I've said this, man. I'm going to say Jeff McNeil, just because on the Mets YouTube channel, they put the second home run, homers in as many days. And because that reminded me of the Chris Paul three-pointer down 47. So just for that iconic just visual, Jeff McNeil hitting 2 home runs in Ohio, being the king of Ohio, I'll give it to Jeff McNeil.
All right, chat, guys, let us know who your studs and duds are right now on your way out. Frank? You are muted, so we have no idea what the hell you're saying.
He's saying Brad Baty.
Of course, I was going to pick McNeil because this might be like the only time I'd get to say his name. So since Andrew took him, I'll go with the guy that we talked about plenty. That is Mark Vientos. I really like what I saw. Mostly the extra base hits. That's what's encouraging me. I like seeing and it kind of goes into Miami shares a little bit too, but hitting those balls just off the wall, hustling doubles, just seeing more power, more extra base hits. This team desperately needs it because we talked about, double plays, one base outcomes. And I just think it's very encouraging to see a young guy kind of do the most out of it. And one of the things that I don't think we really talked about in that segment was the idea that all off season we were of the mindset that Mark Vientos was going to be the starting DH. We did not think the Mets were adding a DH, especially with how late it got into spring training. Like Mark Vientos is going to be the opening day roster, is going to be the opening day DH. And he was kind of, but then once the JD Martinez signing, I'm like, oh crap, what was the Vientos now? So he was really put in like a very tough spot, like a spot that he wouldn't they did not put in the best position to succeed. So seeing him, in his limited opportunities, do something about it, I think is a really good story for him. So, I've been proud of what he's been able to do.
All right, Ibby, you have a stud this week in this series?
Is there anybody else? I mean, Christ, I can't. I mean, off the top of my head, the Bader home run. I mean, where else am I going?
Yeah.
Like
Tomas Nido hit a home run.
It's so few and far.
Hmm.
Like honestly, like to Andrew's point before, it's like he got swept out of the building. It's like I have a hard time even focusing on the positives. So it's like, yeah, the guys that were mentioned, obviously McNeil actually putting the bat on the ball, raised that trade value if you can get him the hell out of town, but that's not going to happen. Mark Vientos is, it's great to see what he has been doing. Hopefully that can continue. I guess I'll say Bader. He's been doing solid for what the time he's been playing, what have you. I mean, like it's very hard to pull anything else. I was happy Lindor actually got a base hit with guys on for his one at bat that I remember seeing, but. Yeah,
Wait, you don't watch the games?
Well,
Ibby exposed doesn't watch the games like I don't. Oh, wow.
No, it's more like that. When that game was going on, I was at work, so I couldn't watch that one because everyone's going to sit down and watch a 1 o'clock game.
Lucky bastard.
Yeah, a 1 o'clock game on a Wednesday. I'm at work, but yeah, it's not pretty. So I would much rather just mention the fact that the entire team is an overall dud. But I guess I'm going to say Harrison Bader for whatever that is. But I'm more on line with McNeil and Vientos.
All right. Well, mine kind of ties into a segment we didn't get into. But I'm going to go with Tyler Megill because in terms of
that's my cue,
I'm
guys.
sorry. Did I say
later.
you can talk? Did I say you can talk, Andrew? Thanks.
You're talking? No. Guys.
But because overall, that was in terms of great, like Arsenal's graded in terms of advanced league. That is one of the best outings he has had since that 2022 opening day start. That's how well graded his start was, and hopefully he can build on that. And I hope that he does. But he did walk one in his 4 rehab starts. And
walk two
in the start that he had this week. And Frank went ballistic. Speaking of going ballistic, let's go to the duds. Andrew, who do you got?
Oh God, can I just say the whole team? Everybody else, the other 24 other guys, like take your pick.
Could.
Jake Diekman, because again, he's punching that outing of him boxing a Gatorade cooler. Again, just gotta love it. Just beating the hell out of useless. That doesn't have a spark, buddy. You can't. It has feelings.
And then out of Gator an iPad.
And then out of Ina's iPad. So I'll just go for the property damage value and the stressful value. I'm gonna go Jake Diekman.
All right, Frank.
Yeah, I'll go with the guy that I can't stand looking at his face, Adrian Hauser. I mean, this guy, just every time he's out there, it's a literal disaster. I mean, Diekman helped him out by giving, overall allowing the 6 runs. But this was frustrating because this was a game where the Mets scored 6 runs. And because the starting pitcher was out there just doing what he does every single time he makes a start, they don't win the game. And it leads to a sweep. So I just don't get it. Like I understood why they took him out of the rotation, like that made sense, but they brought him back in and he's still awful. Like he just cannot start anymore.
I will tell you one thing. I do think I think they're going to bring up David Peterson, he's going to get DFA'd. I do think that's going to happen like this week. Cuz like I don't see how long you can keep the leash for. I mean we're in the same span of time they've given to Joey Wendell, right? So same thing goes with Adrian Hauser. If you're not performing, you're not performing. If they want to move him to the bullpen again, be a long man. Fine.
He didn't even do good.
I still would
just
move
bullpen.
On.
Like it didn't even help. I mean,
you have other options in AAA that can give you quality.
Yeah,
as compared to him.
I don't see him as a reliever. He doesn't miss bats. Like he would not. He just doesn't have reliever arsenal. Like
he's supposed to get the ball on the ground and he's not able to.
That is not
so
doing
that's literally it. Even though his velo was up in that start, he still was not making the spots he needed. Like it's just, I think that it's a bad combination when you just don't have the stuff to get those whiffs. You need to locate well, and he's not able to do that. Other than that, for my dud, I understand he hit a home run in the second game, I think, But Starling Marte played this entire series with his head up his ass. Can I just say that? The base running mistake, or what was it? The double, the most laughable double play I've ever seen in that first game.
Yeah.
Arguing with
The umpire.
an umpire on an actual strike. That was a strike. Not even close. Screw ups in the outfield. Waving at sliders like he always does. Grounding into double plays.
Mm-hmm.
If he did not hit that home run, I probably would advise everyone to pick Starling Marte. Because he didn't even look like he wanted to be there for 90% of that series. And for some reason, I'm getting tired of him, but there's no one here to replace him. Or there's no one here, coming up for the minor leagues again, like, Drew Gilbert or whatever, like we talked about. If he's not playing well, there's no one there right now.
Bro, Trace Thompson is killing. What are you talking about?
What?
Trace Thompson is murdering the baseball right now. Get him up here. He cares about ball.
Yes, starting right fielder Trace Thompson. That'll work. But what I'm saying is that I'm getting very frustrated with him. I really am. Because, yes, he'll do a few things to make up for it, but he ain't the player. He ain't the player he was. And it's becoming very, very evident. And I feel like we're just stuck with that type of production. That's the main reason why I put him, because he has some speed. I would put him in that ninth spot, But again, the bottom half is still compromised as well. Now, John and Ibby both had to go, so we're gonna close this one out right here. Just the three of us. And other than that, I mean, pretty good episode. We ranted out a lot. We probably could go for another 7 hours of what's going on with this team, but we're going to cut it off here. Parting words for episode number 51, going into the Mets and the Giants. I think the good part of our rotation is going to be pitching. Christian Scott, Severino, and Manaya. So maybe a better chance there, but oh boy, I just love to see good baseball again, and it has not been a situation that I've seen for a while. Andrew, I'll start with you. Parting words, go ahead.
Again, the Giants coming to town. Get to see, I think Conforto's hurt, but Jorge Soler, a guy we were praying for. We get to see him. Matt Chapman. Some people wanted him too. So again, see the Giants. Obviously, they don't have their biggest offseason acquisition because he's done, Mr. Jung Ho Lee. But again, you got the guys that are half decent on the mound. So win one would be nice.
Yeah.
They're going to have to win Friday because they have Hicks on Saturday and Logan Webb on Sunday. So this will be a nice test for that new lineup configuration that's gotten some decent output.
Snell on paternity leave, apparently.
Yeah. I don't see Blake Snell listed right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. And we talked a lot about how this team handles velocity. So I'm very intrigued by the Hicks matchup. I know the Logan Webb was going to be a disaster, but I am just kind of curious to see if they do anything against Hicks. That's the one I'm really watching.
Kyle Harrison will be the guy that Christian Scott is facing tomorrow.
Ooh,
looks like that'll be, what is it? One of the, how many no-hitters have they had? This would be like their 10th no-hitter in Giants history, right? So that guy will throw it, and then we'll beat up on Hicks and Webb because baseball makes so much sense. But I mean, other than that, I think that at the end of the day, it's either you play better baseball or a lot of changes are going to be made. And you can't get worse than a sweep. So I'm hoping they win one game here and there. But right now, I'm not confident in this team. Let's just say that. Hopefully, Francisco Alvarez gives you that jolt, but it's going to be a while for that. Still don't know about Senga. So at this current moment, the Mets got to deal with what they got. And, they're going to have to continue to survive on it. So other than that, we'll see you guys on Sunday for episode number 52 of the podcast, which will be the recap of the Giants series. And make sure to follow us everywhere. All the links are in the description. Thank you to John and Ibby for joining us this week. Their links are also in the description. Check out their show. They do great stuff. They go on every single Wednesday. So glad that they were able to come on here. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time. Let's go Mets. And yeah, peace out.